Hello there. In a world that never sleeps, neither does wonder. Welcome to the Sleepless Scrolls, where your imagination can roam even while you rest. So tell me, where are you listening from tonight? Is it already midnight in your city, or are you sneaking in a story before the sun dips low? Wherever you are, welcome. Settle into your blanket. Let the dim glow of your screen be the last flicker of light before we journey into something extraordinary. And don't forget, if you like where your mind wanders tonight, tap subscribe, leave a sleepy little comment, or simply whisper a like into the darkness. Tonight, we drift into a world that never should exist, a world where the earth stops spinning. Now, I should warn you, you probably won't survive this, but that's the beauty of imagination, isn't it? You can float through disaster, watch the world twist and tear without ever leaving your pillow. So, let's begin. The moment arrives quietly, with no fanfare. 1 second, the earth is spinning beneath your feet at 1,000 miles per hour. The next, nothing. No warning, no slowdown, just a sudden, absolute stillness. The earth stops. You don't feel it at first, not in the quiet of your bedroom or the hush of trees just outside, but within seconds, everything around you starts to move, violently, because even though the earth has halted, everything on it keeps moving, including you. You are flung forward, lifted, hurled, ripped from the ground. You were part of the momentum. So was every tree, truck, skyscraper, bird, bridge, building, and boulder. Everything not bolted directly into the bedrock gets launched eastward at 1,000 miles per hour. The air, too, keeps going, for now. Imagine it, a wind faster than any hurricane, stronger than any explosion, sweeping across entire continents. Trees snap like twigs, buildings crumple like paper, cars take flight, planes intuit. He sky veer off course, unable to control their trajectory as the invisible hand of inertia grabs them by the tail. And yet somehow you're still here, battered, bloodied, perhaps buried beneath fragments of your old world, but breathing. The oceans didn't miss their cue either. Like massive hands of water, the equatorial seas rise and leap inland. Tsunamis born of motion, not tectonics. Waves taller than skyscrapers hammer coastlines on every continent. Coastal cities, New York, Tokyo, Lagos, Rio, Karachi, drown before their residents can even gasp. The Atlantic climbs upward like it's trying to reach the moon. The Pacific, unruly and unbound, washes away entire island chains. But that's just the beginning, because stopping the spin doesn't just toss you forward, it breaks the rules of the entire planet. Let's step back a moment. You know that Earth spins, right? But what you might not feel is just how fast it moves. At the equator, it turns at over 1,000 miles per hour. That's why the sun rises and sets, why wind patterns work the way they do, why time zones even exist. The Earth is a spinning sphere, and that spin does more than make day and night. It shapes everything, and without it, the planet begins to break. A curious fact from history, in 1851, a man named Léon Foucault swung a pendulum inside a cathedral in Paris, and as it swung, it slowly twisted, showing for the first time, visibly, that Earth rotates beneath us. It was the first proof you could see of Earth's spin. But now, Foucault's pendulum would hang still, suspended above a dead planet, and without spin, something strange starts to happen to gravity. You might think gravity is just gravity, but at the equator, the spin of the Earth adds a little lift, a centrifugal force that subtly pushes you outward. It's tiny, just enough to make you weigh about 0.5% less than you would at the poles. You don't feel it, but it's there. It shapes sea levels, ocean currents, even the shape of the Earth itself, slightly bulged at the equator, slightly flattened at the top and bottom. But now, with the Earth stopped, that outward force is gone. So you feel heavier, not because gravity has grown stronger, but because that invisible helping hand has disappeared. It's like wearing a backpack that someone had been quietly lifting for you all your life, until now. Scientists still argue whether the sudden stop would cause immediate mass death or simply trigger a prolonged unraveling of ecosystems, but either way, it's no longer the planet you knew. Let's paint the scene. You stagger forward, feet dragging through the dust of a fallen world, Around you, metal bends, glass litters the ground like snow. A child's kite lies impaled through a telephone pole. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rings once, then stops. The sun, still in the sky, just hanging there, not moving. Because Earth rotated once every 24 hours, but now that motion is gone, which means the place you're standing in, if it was daytime when the planet stopped, will stay lit forever. The sun doesn't rise, the sun doesn't set, it just hovers, and for the people on the other side of the world, it's eternal night. The dark isn't gentle either, it brings ice. You might be standing in what was once New Delhi or Nairobi, and yet you feel a creeping chill in the air. Already, just minutes in. Why? Because the heat distribution of Earth depended on its rotation. The sun moved, or rather you rotated into its light. Heat circulated globally, carried on jet streams and spinning oceans. But with the spin gone, heat stalls. The side facing the sun begins to bake. The other side begins to freeze. And you are on the fault line, a place where dusk now lasts forever and shadows stretch on for miles. You look up, the stars haven't moved, the clouds drift but sluggishly, birds are gone, either flown or flung. In 1980, Mount St. Helens erupted and flattened 230 square miles of forest. Trees snap, dead and fell, all in the direction of the blast. That's what much of Earth looks like now, a giant planetary St. Helens event. Entire forests knocked flat in neat rows, but instead of lava, it was inertia that did the job. Somewhere in the rubble you find a radio, you tune through static, nothing. Then a whisper of a voice, not English, not any language you know, just the sound of another survivor, another heartbeat in this broken stillness. You wonder how long you'll last, whether there's a new morning after this perpetual noon. And above all, you wonder what broke it, what stopped the Earth from spinning. Maybe it was an impact, maybe something deep in the planet's molten core just froze. Scientists used to say the core spun independently of the crust. Maybe it's not spinning anymore either. Maybe it never was. But those answers can wait. Right now, you move, carefully, toward the edge of the light. The temperature is rising, the ground is hot, and you need to find shelter before the eternal sun burns you into history. You move slowly now. Your shoes crunch over shards of concrete and burnt asphalt, the heat of the ever-staring sun turning the road beneath you into something brittle and soft at once. The stillness is oppressive. No birds, no distant hum of traffic, no buzzing flies or singing wind. Only the soft, eerie echo of your own breath and the rustling scrape of your movement through a world that forgot how to turn. But above you, the air hasn't forgotten. It's still in motion. You pause for a moment, crouching behind the skeletal frame of a fallen billboard. In the distance, you hear it, the low, rising howl, like the groan of a giant waking up. But it's not a sound made by any living thing, it's the sky itself. The atmosphere, ever faithful to its inertia, is still racing. When the Earth stopped, the air didn't. It kept moving at the same speed the planet had. Been spinning. 1,000 miles per hour, and now it crashes across the surface in vast, violent gales. You brace yourself as the wind arrives. It comes not as a breeze or gust, but a horizontal wall of fury. It's not just wind, it's momentum incarnate, slamming into buildings, peeling rooftops like sardine cans, stripping trees of bark and shoving cars into the air like forgotten toys. You duck lower, clutching the base of a twisted guardrail as glass and gravel slice the air above your head. And in this moment you realize there is no storm you've ever known like this. This is not a tornado, not a hurricane. It is the atmosphere itself trying to realign with a planet that's betrayed its movement. Once, in 1970, the Bola cyclone hit Bangladesh. Winds reached 115 miles per hour, and the storm surge killed nearly 500,000 people. It was the deadliest tropical cyclone in history. Now multiply that by 10. The winds at the equator are worst, where the spin had been fastest. Here they howl loud enough to shake your bones, snapping power lines and flinging loose trash high into the orange-tinged sky. Cities that once pierced the heavens, like Jakarta, Quito, or Nairobi, have been flattened or burned, entire skylines turned to low smears of dust. But where you are, farther from the equator, it's survivable, just barely, because the Earth wasn't spinning at the same speed everywhere. Near the poles, rotation was slower. That means the air here didn't move quite as fast. The damage is brutal, yes, but not total. There are still intact stairwells, still doors you can wrench open and crawl behind, still moments between the gusts to breathe. Still wind. Scientists still debate whether the atmosphere would gradually settle after the Earth stops spinning, or whether its chaotic currents would continue, caught in a feedback loop of energy and motion. Some suggest that the Coriolis effect, the invisible twisting force that shaped weather patterns, would vanish entirely, causing systems to collapse. Others argue remnants oars. F movement would persist, like ghosts of old whirlpools trapped in the sky. But as you huddle behind the shattered shell of a bus, you aren't thinking about science, you're just trying to stay alive. When the worst of the gusts pass, you crawl back out. The light is blinding. You lift your hand to shield your eyes, but even that thin protection feels weak. Without the rotation of the Earth, the sun doesn't glide gracefully across the sky, it just sits there, glaring down like an unblinking god. The longer you're exposed to it, the more your skin stings, not with sunburn, but something deeper, like heat boring into your blood. And it isn't just hot, it's wrong. Without the Earth's spin distributing warmth, the heat in your region builds and builds with nowhere to go. Normally, winds and water currents would whisk it away, balancing temperatures across continents, but those systems are in chaos now, or simply gone. A quirky little historical fact. Before weather satellites, sailors used wind roses to chart prevailing winds. They knew the ocean breezes like we know street names, but now you could toss every wind map and climate chart into the fire. None of it applies anymore. The old rules are gone. You make your way toward what used to be a hospital. It leans slightly to the left, one side buried under the debris of its own parking garage. The automatic doors are frozen open, and inside the air is cool, trapped in shadow. You shuffle down a corridor lit by broken fluorescents, their tubes still flickering from battery power or some backup generator humming somewhere in the bones of the building. And for a moment, just a moment, it feels normal. You pass faded posters on the wall. Wash your hands. Flu shots available. World Health Day, April 7th. But April will never come again. Not here. Time, after all, was tied to Earth's rotation. One full spin equals 1 day. Now, you've entered a world without days. No clock can measure this. No calendar can keep up. You wander deeper, past rows of empty gurneys and surgical lights that droop like mechanical flowers. And then you find it, the rooftop, a rusted ladder leading into the light. You climb carefully, emerging into the sun's merciless eye once more. From here, you see the wind's damage clearly. Entire neighborhoods twisted and turned inside out. Roads buckle, roofs gone. An overpass has been snapped in half. But the strangest thing? The air is clearing. The dust, once thick enough to paint the horizon in sepia, is settling. And the sky looks blue again, like nothing happened. You lie down on the warm concrete, breathing in that illusion of peace, and you wonder how many others are doing the same. You imagine survivors huddled in subways, in mines, in sunken malls, people blinking into the brightness or curling up in frozen darkness, because somewhere on the other side of the world, it's night. Permanent night, a place where the sun never shines, where the temperature is dropping minute by minute, the dark deepening like an ocean trench. Somewhere, children are building fires out of textbooks and staring at a black sky that won't turn blue again. And between those two sides, between the scorched lands of eternal day and the frozen kingdoms of endless night, lies a narrow strip of twilight, a thin ribbon around the Earth's surface where the temperature is bearable, the winds have softened, and the sun clings stubbornly to the horizon. That's where you must go. That twilight zone, like the band around a planet in a sci-fi novel, is the new home of humanity. If anyone survives, it's there. But getting there won't be easy. And as you close your eyes, letting the sun's rays warm your tired bones, you feel the wind shifting again. Another blast is coming, another reminder that the atmosphere hasn't calmed. Not yet, but you're learning how to move, how to wait, how to breathe. without panicking. The Earth may have stopped spinning, but you haven't. Not yet. You descend from the rooftop just before the next gust rips through the sky. The sound reaches you seconds before the wind itself, an eerie, escalating wail like a siren drawn out across miles. It's not just the atmosphere moving anymore. You're starting to feel something else. Weight. A different kind of weight. Not the emotional burden of survival, that's always been there, but a literal heaviness pulling at your limbs. Your footsteps drag more. Your knees ache with each descent. At first you think it's fatigue, or maybe dehydration under the ever-burning sun, but it's not. The pull is stronger than it was yesterday. Gravity has changed. You remember how it felt to jump, once, light, brief, your feet leaving the earth for a flicker of a second. Now your body stays closer to the ground, heavier, as if the planet's grip has tightened, and it has. Without the Earth spinning, centrifugal force has vanished. Normally, that spin created a subtle outward push, strongest at the equator, slightly reducing the effect of gravity, not enough for anyone to notice in their day-to-day life. But now that it's gone, you notice. Every cell in your body feels the difference. At the equator, people used to weigh about 0.5% less than at the poles, just a few ounces. But now, you're not at the equator, you're heading north, toward the pole, and with the absence of centrifugal force, gravity grows stronger as you go. You feel it as you trudge. Your muscles burn quicker, your pack feels denser, even your eyelids seem to resist being lifted. It's as though the Earth, in its new stillness, has decided to hold on tighter to everything that remains. You remember hearing that in the 1600s, Sir Isaac Newton pondered gravity after watching an apple fall. That simple observation unlocked the mechanics of the universe. But Newton never imagined a world where gravity might not stay constant, where it might subtly shift depending on the whims of planetary motion or its lack. Still, you move forward. The landscape begins to change. The city has thinned out. The skeletal remains of suburbia stretch like broken teeth along a jagged road. Abandoned cars, some upturned, others half melted in the sun, litter the shoulder. You pass a playground, eerily intact. Swings hang still. A plastic slide has buckled from the heat. A teddy bear lies beneath it, its fur bleached and crackling in the sun. As you pass, you hear something. Not the wind this time. A soft hum, mechanical. You follow it, cautiously. Behind a row of sun-baked houses, you discover the source, a solar-powered generator, still running, miraculously. The panel above it is cracked, half covered in soot, but it's catching enough sunlight to keep a nearby structure powered. You enter. Inside, the air is cooler, not cold. Nothing is truly cold on this side of the planet anymore, but less punishing. The building is reinforced, insulated with makeshift materials, old blankets, metal panels, even refrigerator doors stacked like bricks. It's someone's shelter. They're not here now, but they were. And they left behind notes, scrawled across the wall in thick marker, gravity increasing near the poles, heading north equals slow death. Below that, or maybe salvation, cold equals life, stay low, move at night. And lower still, almost a whisper in ink, if time still exists, this is day 13. You stand in that room staring at those words. If time still exists, what does that mean anymore? Time, as you once knew it, is tied to rotation. Days were defined by one full turn of Earth. Now there are no days, only exposure. Still, your body remembers a rhythm. You sleep, you wake, you move. But the external world has lost its pulse. You check your watch, it still ticks. But its meaning is hollow now. The numbers are relics of a former truth. You wonder if atomic clocks buried deep in observatories are still humming along, if they're still counting the seconds of a world that no longer spins. Scientists still debate what would happen to internal biological clocks in a world without sunrises or sunsets. Some argue we'd slowly adjust. Others say we'd unravel, mentally, emotionally, physiologically. Humans, after all, are circadian creatures. We rise with the light, sleep with the dark. What happens when light and dark become fixed, immovable absolutes? You leave the shelter just as the sun begins to dip. Not set, but tilt ever so slightly toward the horizon. You're entering the twilight band. Here, the sun hovers eternally low in the sky. It casts long shadows, like late afternoon frozen in place. The air is cooler, bearable. The ground doesn't shimmer with heat, and your body sighs in relief. This is the zone survivors are seeking. Here, the balance of light and shadow offers the last tolerable sliver of climate on Earth. Plants might still grow here, water might still run. It's narrow, perhaps only 100 miles wide, encircling the planet like a thread of gold, but it's the best chance anyone has. You move through what used to be farmland. The fields are wild now, choked with weeds and half-burned stalks, but in the distance you spot movement, not wind, not debris, people. They walk in clusters, some dragging carts, others ride makeshift wagons pulled by tired horses. A few carry tools, shovels, solar panels, even laptops slung across their backs like medieval scrolls. They see you, and some raise their hands in silent greeting. You walk together now. You don't speak at first. Language seems unnecessary. You are pilgrims on the same journey, bound by silence and survival. One of them, an older woman with silver-streaked hair and sun-creased skin, finally speaks. "We're heading north," she says. "Not too far, just enough to stay in the twilight, just enough to keep cool." You nod. She watches your eyes for a moment, then adds, "Gravity feels stronger." You both laugh. A dry, tired chuckle. It's not funny, but it's true, and true things deserve acknowledgement. She tells you they found a garden that still grows, carrots mostly, some kale. Deep-rooted things, she says. They're stubborn, like us. As you walk, she shares an odd fact, something she remembered from years ago. In ancient Egypt, people believed the earth stood still while the heavens moved around it. The sky gods carried the sun from one end of the world to the other each day. "Well," she says, "they were half right. The earth does stand still now, and the sky doesn't seem to care." You look up. The sun is fixed at the edge of sight, a molten halo. Around it, the sky is smeared in bruised lavender and orange. You can't tell if it's sunrise or sunset. It's both, or neither. The stars are faint now, but you know they'll return, at least for those in the eternal night. On that frozen half of the world, the constellations hang motionless. Polaris, the North Star, no longer pivots in the sky. Orion never moves. The heavens are statues now. You set up camp with the group, tents made of scavenged billboard vinyl, fires fueled by dry grass and plastic. Someone shares a half-melted chocolate bar, and for a second you remember your old life. The hum of a refrigerator, a soft bed, a nightlight glowing in the hallway. You curl into your sleeping bag as the wind hushes. The earth is still, but your heart is not. You wake up in shadow, though the sun hasn't moved. The light hasn't shifted. It still hovers near the horizon, casting long golden shafts across the land like a spotlight paused at the edge of the stage. But you're in the narrow band now, Twilight's kingdom, and here sleep feels almost normal, not because it's night, but because the world is quiet, the wind is weaker, the ground is cooler, and your body, worn from too much sun, finally allowed itself to drift. The others are stirring too. Someone boils water in a blackened tin pot over a smokeless fire. Steam sea snarls into the still air. The older woman from the day before, her name is Lise, passes you a metal mug. It tastes like bark and roots, but it's warm, familiar. You nod your thanks. Around you, the survivors are packing slowly, deliberately. They've learned that sudden movement costs too much in this heavier world. You're not alone anymore. But companionship doesn't mean comfort. Because as you sip that bitter tea, you realize something. The sky hasn't changed, not 1 degree. The sun remains exactly where it was when you closed your eyes. Time is becoming a stranger. The group discusses their route. North, yes, but not too far. Not into the polar regions where gravity grows stronger and the cold becomes unbearable, but not south either. There, the land is blistering, the air dry as bone. Fires have already started in forests too brittle to resist. They've heard rumors, some silly, some serious, of a colony forming in Greenland, of a vast underground shelter beneath the Urals, of a monorail in China that still runs between shadows, but no one knows. Satellites are falling. Communication has gone dark. You eat a quiet breakfast, dried apples, walnuts, a piece of flatbread someone made from ground cattails, and then you walk again. The land here is mostly plains, interrupted by the occasional crumbled town. Small houses dot the horizon like abandoned memories. Grain silos stand as if waiting for a harvest that never came. It was in one of these silos, according to Lise, that someone noticed it first. The sun wasn't just paused, it was slightly tilted, barely a fraction of a degree, but enough that, over several days, the people in the twilight band had to keep walking west to stay within the survivable light zone. The Earth had stopped spinning, but maybe not completely. Maybe there was some residual movement, some final breath of motion. Scientists still argue whether the stop would be abrupt or gradual. Some models suggest a sudden halt would be globally catastrophic. Others propose that momentum might bleed away over hours or even days. No one knows for sure. No one can know. There is no precedent. The Earth has never stopped spinning before. And yet, here you are. You pass a collapsed wind turbine. Its blades, once symbols of clean energy, now lie cracked and still. The air has torn them apart, or perhaps they simply snapped under the weight of this new, unmoving world. Poetic, someone murmurs behind you. The wind outlasted the windmills. It reminds you of something else, an odd, little-known fact. In ancient Mesopotamia, people believed that time flowed from the future into the past. They faced west when reading omens, believing the future came from behind them, unseen, while the past stretched forward, visible and known. That feels strangely fitting now. You're walking west, chasing the last sliver of twilight, fleeing from a present that no longer moves forward. Midday approaches, or what would be midday, except the sun remains skewed, suspended. You reach a river, shallow and winding, its surface calm but oddly clouded. You crouch down and touch the water. It's warm, warmer than any river should be. Oceans, lakes and rivers once danced in rhythm with Earth's rotation. Currents flowed east to west, pulled by tides and the Coriolis effect, but now the rhythm has broken. The water has lost its direction. Some rivers run backward, some swirl in endless eddies, and others, like this one, simply rest. You fill your canteen. The water is drinkable, just barely, but it leaves a strange mineral taste, as though something ancient has surfaced. Lise tells you about Lake Vostok in Antarctica, a subglacial lake buried beneath 2 miles of ice, untouched by sunlight for millions of years. Scientists drilled into it once, searching for life in the dark. What they found was mysterious, microbes that defied classification. You think the same thing's happening here, you ask. Who knows, she says. Earth's old bones are rising. Maybe the past is leaking through. As you follow the river's edge, you notice the animals. Not many. A few birds, dazed, circling low, unsure where to go. Some deer, thinner than they should be, huddled in the shade of a collapsed barn. Their instincts are failing them. Migration routes are meaningless now. There are no seasons, no temperatures to follow, no predictable sun. Biologists have always marveled at animal instinct, the built-in compasses in birds, the sun-tracking leaves of sunflowers, the deep time navigation of whales. But these instincts evolved over eons to align with a moving planet. Now all those internal maps are wrong. You remember a fringe theory you once read. Some ancient cultures believed animals could feel the Earth's pulse, its movement, its heartbeat. Maybe that's why they act so strangely now. Maybe they feel something missing that humans can't quite detect. Around midday, you reach a small settlement, 10 or 12 people, children too. They've built something like a village, tarps and stone, old rail ties for frames, reflective fabric rigged overhead to filter the sun. They welcome your group cautiously. No one is hostile, but trust, like everything else, is slower now. You trade supplies, a roll of copper wire for a hand-cranked water purifier, a solar-powered radio for antibiotics. You even find a child's globe among the trade pile. It's scuffed and faded, but the equator still wraps around it like a belt of meaning. The group laughs as someone spins it. The irony is sharp. At dinner, everyone gathers near a low fire. Lise plays a battered flute, just a few notes, soft and haunting. You hum along, one of the children drops. or wet in the dirt, stick figures beneath a big yellow sun. No night, just endless day. You ask the boy his name, he says it's Micah. You ask if he remembers night. You ask if he remembers night. He shrugs. Mom says it was cold and nice, but I like this light. It's warm, it's safe. You look around. Warm, yes, but safe. That night, again, not truly night, you lie down under the filtered tent roof, staring through a mesh panel at the frozen sun. You realize something strange. The stars have begun to fade, not all of them, just some. The longer the sun stays fixed, the harder it is to see the subtle pinpricks of light that once pierced the veil. The atmosphere is changing, heating, thickening. Dust and particles from collapsed cities and burning forests now float in the upper sky, scattering light, filtering it, warping it. There's a legend from World War II that during the bombing of London, the stars were so bright over the blackout city that people saw them for the first time in years. Now, the opposite is happening. The light never leaves. The stars are swallowed. Someone next to you whispers, "I miss the moon." You hadn't noticed until now, but it's true. The moon hasn't been visible for days, and you wonder, where is it? Still orbiting, still pulling at the seas, or has it too changed course? Scientists still argue about how much the moon depends on Earth's rotation. The gravitational dance between them is intricate, delicate. If the Earth stopped spinning, would the moon's orbit decay? Would it drift away? Would its pull become erratic? You close your eyes trying to imagine a sky with no sun, no moon, no stars, just stillness, just memory. You wake to a strange glow. Not from the sun, it still hangs in place, slightly slanted over the horizon like a watchful eye. But the colour of the light has changed. It's paler now, more golden than before, with a sickly green tinge. The air smells faintly metallic. You taste it in your mouth before you even sit up. Others are awake already. The village is moving slowly, quietly, not with fear, but with wariness, like animals before a storm. And then someone shouts, "Look!" You follow their gaze skyward, toward the sun. No, not at the sun, around it. There's something in the sky, a shimmer, a faint dance of colour that seems to ripple in wide, ghostly arcs. At first you think it's an aurora, but this isn't the north, and this doesn't move like the auroras you've seen in pictures. It flickers and blurs like heat rising from asphalt, only vertical. A man mutters, "Radiation bands. I read about this once. It's happening." And suddenly you remember the magnetic field. Earth's spinning iron core generates a magnetic shield around the planet. That invisible shield protects you from cosmic rays, solar flares, and the brutal radiation of space. It filters the sun's fury. It makes Earth livable. But the field depends, at least in part, on Earth's rotation. A dynamo effect, molten metal spinning deep within the Earth. The rotation powers the magnetosphere like a crank on an old generator. And now, the crank has stopped. The field is weakening. Not everywhere at once, not like flipping a switch, but it's fraying, thread by thread. And those shimmering distortions above you, that's cosmic radiation bleeding through the thinning veil, a beauty that bites. Back in 1859, a massive solar storm known as the Carrington Event struck Earth. Telegraph lines sparked, Aurora Borealis reached as far south as Cuba. If something like that happened now, without a magnetic shield, satellites would fry, power grids would melt, and electronics would short-circuit worldwide. And now, it might not take a Carrington-level event. Even normal solar radiation, unfiltered, can begin to burn. You suddenly understand the sickly taste in the air. It's not just heat, it's the slow seep of ultraviolet and X-rays reaching deeper than they ever should. A woman rushes toward the main tent, dragging a large roll of copper mesh. "We have to layer the shelters," she says breathlessly. "Line the roofs, ground the corners. It might help." Lise joins her without hesitation, already pulling wire from a sack. You move too. Everyone does. It's not panic, it's instinct. Protect, shield, adapt. By noon, though noon is just an idea now, the tents are double-layered, the shelters reinforced, anything reflective, metallic or insulating is put to use. Aluminum foil, car panels, solar blankets. Someone switches on a handheld Geiger counter they scavenged from an old lab. The clicking is slow, but steady. It's not lethal yet, but it's rising. Radiation isn't fire. It doesn't burn you instantly. It whispers through your cells, rewrites your blood, corrupts your DNA. It turns future children into question marks. It turns skin into a memory. And this exposure in daylight may be just the beginning. You spend the day indoors, moving between shelters. Even the filtered twilight can't be trusted anymore. The old rules of light and dark no longer apply. This isn't about brightness, it's about energy. And still the magnetic field falters. Scientists still argue whether the planet's core would keep spinning after the crust stops. Some suggest it might continue for a while, maintaining some level of magnetism. Others believe the dynamo effect is entirely dependent on surface motion. If that's true, then this stillness is more than physical. It's electromagnetic silence. The sky is already changing. Satellites, once silent watchers of Earth's surface, are beginning to fall. Some disintegrate on re-entry, others survive long enough to create debris, fiery streaks across the sky, mistaken for meteors. But they're not meteors, they're tombstones from the space age. You see one that night, or what would be night, streaking westward like a burning star. It breaks apart just over the hills, scattering chunks of solar panel and twisted metal into a nearby field. A few in the village go to salvage what they can. Later, around the fire, a woman speaks in a hushed voice. "My brother worked for NASA," she says. "He told me once that if the magnetosphere failed, our atmosphere would start to erode. Not fast, not all at once, but steadily, like a coat being stripped thread by thread." No one speaks. You'd never notice at first. Just more radiation, a little more solar wind, a shift in cloud behavior. Then water molecules start breaking apart. Hydrogen escapes into space, and then Earth becomes Mars, Lisa finishes softly. It sounds too big to be true, but isn't everything about this new world? Once Mars had water. Once it had a thicker atmosphere. Once it might have even had life. Now it's cold, dry, and dead. You lie awake that night, listening to the stillness. The stars above have faded even more. Dust from burning forests, crashing satellites, and shifting land has begun to collect in the upper atmosphere, refracting light, casting the sky in a weird, eternal twilight. The moon is still absent. The constellations, once familiar friends, are vanishing behind a dusty veil. There's something unnatural about a night without stars. It makes the world feel unfinished. And yet, as you close your eyes, something flickers in your memory. A story about sailors long ago, Polynesian navigators who could feel the stars in their skin, sense ocean currents in their bones. They read the sky like a map, without light pollution, without instruments, just instinct and memory. You wonder how they'd feel in this sky. The next day, people begin to dig. Not graves, not gardens, shelters. Deep, layered, grounded. You help them, your fingers blistered from days of walking and wind. You dig into what was once fertile earth, now dense and clay-heavy. Every foot deeper is a foot closer to safety. One man unearths something strange, an old metal sign, rusted and unreadable, buried beneath roots. You imagine it as once a welcome sign. Welcome to Pleasant View, or now entering Boone County. Now it's just a slab of silent metal, crushed under time and dirt. You work until your body trembles, then you rest in the cool. Underground, the air is still, safe, muted. One of the scientists in the group, a woman named Dr. Kemi, sets up a radiation test station. She has a solar-powered tablet linked to instruments scavenged from labs and hospitals. You watch her place a sensor outside the shelter and study the screen. "It's rising," she says. "We're seeing levels that used to be considered high altitude only. This used to be normal at 40,000 feet. Now it's here, ground level." "And the magnetic field?" you ask. She sighs. "Still dropping, fast." She doesn't say what everyone's thinking. There's no way to rebuild it, no switch to flip. It's not a machine, it's Earth's heartbeat, and it's stopping. Still, she offers a flicker of hope. "There are pockets," she says. places where field lines might remain temporarily, buried iron deposits, unique geology. These could act like mini-magnetic bubbles. Maybe they'll hold out longer. Where? She shrugs. Hard to say. Western Australia, parts of Siberia, maybe the Canadian Shield. You nod, filing those names away like distant dreams. But for now, here, under this hill, in this makeshift hollow, you are safe. The group has named this place the Pause. It's not a camp, not a home, just a moment of safety, a breath, a pause. The earth has stopped. And so, for a while, you stop too. You sleep not in fear, but in resolve. Because the wind may blow, the field may fail, but somewhere in the dark, beneath the frozen stars, life still endures. And you are still here. You awaken deep underground, and for the first time since the earth stopped spinning, you feel something close to peace. The shelter is cool and quiet. The walls, lined with salvaged insulation, lead sheeting and soil-packed barrels, muffle the world above. For a moment, it's easy to forget the sun has become a permanent fixture in the sky, that the wind has carved canyons through cities, that radiation dances just outside like an invisible firestorm. In here, time is slower, but it isn't gone. You roll onto your side, eyes blinking open to the dim light of a cracked solar lantern. Someone left it glowing through the night, or what passes for it now. Lise is asleep nearby, her hand resting over a notebook of hand-drawn maps and migration notes. Micah, the boy, is curled up under a tarp blanket, clutching a plush animal whose face has long since faded. You sit up and stretch. Your muscles are sore, not just from digging and walking, but from the weight of gravity itself. That slight increase is always there. Even your thoughts feel heavier. But you adapt. Everyone does. Slowly, quietly, like vines growing toward light. Up above, the earth is still burning, literally. In the mid-latitudes, especially south of your shelter, wildfires now rage constantly. The dried, sun-baked forests catch easily, igniting from a single spark or a stray reflection from glass. The winds, still unstable from the initial halt, whip the flames into spreading waves. The air carries their memory even here. Ash. You step outside around midday. The surface is ghostly in color. The dust-laced sky has turned the landscape into a pale, bruised monochrome. Grays, browns, tinges of red and amber where sunlight pushes through particles. You glance toward the horizon. The sun, still frozen, now looks weaker, like a lion made of glass, cracked at the edges. It's not dimming exactly, but the veil of particulates, radiation, and a destabilized atmosphere makes its presence more ominous than luminous. And then you hear it. A sound not made by wind or machines. A voice. Faint, distant, and broken, but undeniably human. You climb onto a shallow ridge for better reception, lifting the small radio you recovered from the salvage pile. You scan for frequencies, turning the dial slowly until the voice returns warped through static. Survivors, coastal shelter, Newfoundland, transmitting every 6 hours. You freeze. You weren't sure anyone else was still broadcasting. You turn the dial back, then forward, trying to catch the message in full. Magnetosphere persists weakly in our region. Low radiation pockets, food from hydroponics, coordinates to follow. Your heart thuds. Newfoundland, the far eastern edge of North America. You're in the Midwest. Or what used to be. That's over 1,000 miles away. But if what they're saying is true, if the magnetic field there still holds even faintly, that could be a haven, a place where Earth's protection hasn't completely collapsed. Lise appears beside you, notebook already open. She's heard it too. We could make it, she says, almost to herself, if we keep to the twilight zone, if we move fast. But is fast even possible anymore? In this new world, motion itself has changed. Before the stop, ocean currents carried warm and cool water across the globe, balancing climates and feeding ecosystems. The Gulf Stream alone helped keep much of Europe from freezing. Now, the oceans are dying. Stratification is setting in. Layers of water no longer circulate. The top burns in eternal sunlight. The bottom stagnates, and without the spin to churn them, the seas are going still, and stillness in the ocean is death. Fishermen used to fear the doldrums. those windless patches in the tropics where sails sagged and water stood flat. Ships could be trapped for days, but now every sea is a doldrum, and the surface world reflects that quiet dread. The oceans aren't just warming, they're rotting. Scientists still argue how long the oceans would last. Some say decades, others centuries, but everyone agrees. If currents stop and photosynthesis halts, marine life collapses, and when plankton go, oxygen drops. Already, you've noticed it. The air is thinner than it used to be, or maybe you're just breathing harder. It's hard to tell where your body ends and the wee. All begins now. The journey to Newfoundland isn't just distance, it's survival. Later that day, the village gathers to vote, go or stay. Some want to remain in the pause, the twilight ribbon they've called home for weeks now. It's predictable here. The temperature is bearable. The ground is still fertile enough to grow root vegetables. And most importantly, there's still water. Others, including Lise, want to leave. She believes the field will collapse completely in this region within months, maybe weeks. The signs are everywhere. Increased radiation counts, wildlife migrations heading farther north, birds vanishing entirely. You feel torn. Staying means safety, temporarily, but dying slowly. Leaving means risk. But maybe, just maybe, salvation. Micah walks up to you during the debate. His voice is small but certain. Mom used to say, if we stop moving, we stop dreaming. So, I want to go. You place a hand on his shoulder, nodding. The decision is made by consensus. A group will leave. Volunteers, explorers, pathfinders. The rest will remain behind to hold the shelter, to listen to future transmissions, to protect what little they've built. You volunteer, of course. That night, you prepare. Maps are drawn, solar blankets folded, provisions divided. You choose what to carry based on weight. Every ounce matters now. You take iodine tablets, a radiation badge, a small toolkit, the hand-cranked radio, and a wind-powered battery cell. At the last moment, you're handed something unexpected. A compass. You stare at it for a long time. In a world without magnetic north, what does a compass mean? But when you twist it in your hand, the needle still quivers, faintly, pointing towards something. Perhaps the memory of a pole, or the magnetic echo of a dying field. Lisa smiles. Even if it's wrong, at least it gives you a direction. The next morning, under a sky that bleeds strang. Hughes! You begin the journey east. The landscape is different now, more surreal with every passing mile. You see trees burned black from the top down, as though the sun's gaze seared them like a heat lamp. Cracks in the soil stretch wide enough to swallow tires. Rivers dry up midstream, leaving behind curled fish bones and mud like cake batter. You pass cities, or what remains of them. Skeletons of metal, heat-warped glass, vehicles buried in dust. And silence. Endless, aching silence. You remember something you read once, that if humans vanished overnight, the first sound that would return to cities would be birdsong. But here, it isn't birdsong that returns, it's wind. Not the old violent kind, the momentum-driven fury from the early days after the stop, but a new, slower wind, whisper-thin, yet unsettling. It doesn't come from movement, it comes from imbalance. As hot air from the sunlit side of Earth seeks equilibrium, it begins a long, quiet crawl toward the cold side, a global sigh, the atmosphere still trying to breathe without motion. By the third day of walking, your boots are cracked, your lips are bleeding, and your breath is labored. The gravity here presses more than it did before, just enough that your spine aches when you rise in the morning. The stars don't return. The moon is still gone, but you see signs of something else. On a ridge, etched into the stone by a traveller who came before, to the edge of twilight, keep going. And so you do. The road east becomes less a path and more a ritual. Each step you take is a recitation of everything you've left behind. Concrete buckles beneath your boots, cracked into patterns that look like ancient runes. Asphalt has melted and rehardened, soft as black glass, sharp where it splits. The world no longer offers smooth roads, it offers puzzles, fractures, a map of damage and time. You move with the small group, 12 now. Lise walks ahead, Mika. each often beside you and the others behind. There's a quiet understanding among all of you. No one leads by command. You move together as a single body with a dozen hearts. The sky above is paler each day. The sun hasn't budged, but its light is no longer golden. It's bleached, searing white now, filtered only by the thickening veil of dust and particulates hanging in the stratosphere. You begin to see halos around it, not from beauty, but from diffraction, the scattering of light by pollution too fine for your eyes to see directly. In the distance, an odd sight glows against the horizon. A wind farm, dozens of turbines, still and majestic, their blades locked in mid-turn like frozen dancers. Once, they powered entire communities. Now they stand as symbols of an age that believed it could outthink the earth. You pause at their base, the group taking refuge in the shade of one of the great columns. The wind is calm here, eerily so. Stillness no longer feels peaceful. It feels like pressure, like something holding its breath. Luz climbs the support ladder of one of the turbines, half rusted and swaying. She reaches the top, scans the land with a handheld scope, and then descends. "We're close to the Great Lake," she says. "Used to be eerie. Could be dry now. Used to be." That phrase haunts every conversation. Used to be a lake, used to be trees, used to be birds. Once, this area teemed with gulls and cranes and the shrill calls of loons on the water. Now, the silence makes your ears ring. No insects, no birdsong, no frogs, just the sound of dust underfoot and the occasional groan of metal shifting under heat. When you reach the lake bed, it's worse than expected. What used to be Lake Erie is now a wide, white scar. The water is gone, evaporated or retreated underground. The air smells faintly of minerals and rotting algae. Cracked mud stretches to the horizon, broken by islas. Ands of trash, a boat lying on its side like a beached whale, a rusted pickup truck half submerged in hardened silt, skeletal docks that reach toward nothing. You cross the lake bed on foot. The surface is crusted with salt, whispering beneath your steps. In the middle of the basin, you find something that stops everyone. A single shoe, children's size, perfectly intact. Micah bends to pick it up, but pauses, looking to Lise. She shakes her head. He leaves it there. The shoe says enough. As night, or what would be night, approaches, you camp in the shelter of an overturned fishing boat. Inside, it's cooler, the thick fiberglass shell protecting you from the radiation spike that still occurs, even now when the air cools and currents shift in unpredictable patterns. Lise shares a bit of information she's been holding back. "There's something strange happening with the atmosphere," she says. "It's not just heating, it's thickening at the top and thinning down here. It's redistributing." You frown. "Redistributing?" She nods, sketching a diagram into the salt-dusted floor. The upper layers are absorbing too much radiation. They're expanding outward, but that leaves the lower atmosphere weaker. Less pressure down here means less oxygen, less protection. "Like Earth is turning inside out," someone mutters. "No," she says, "like it's hollowing." It's a terrifying thought, not because the Earth is literally becoming hollow, but because the air you need to breathe is being peeled away, layer by layer, as the shield above expands under solar pressure. And yet, here you are, breathing, living, surviving. You remember a historical oddity. In 1816, the year without a summer, a volcanic eruption in Indonesia filled the skies with ash, causing crop failures and famines across the globe. Temperatures plummeted. Snow fell in June in New England. It was one volcano, one eruption. Now, Earth's entire climate is being rewritten not by nature, but by stillness. And there's no season to wait out, no coming thaw. You ask Lisa how far to Newfoundland. "D too far," she replies honestly, "but maybe just close enough." The next day, the terrain changes again. Forests reappear, but they are brittle, trees burned grey, like ghosts of wood. The leaves are gone, but the trunks remain, tall and hollow. A forest of charcoal. Occasionally you find green poking through, a stubborn fern, a patch of moss, a vine curling around the base of a dead oak. Life, refusing to leave. That day, Micah asks a question no one has dared say aloud. "Are there any animals left?" No one answers for a long time. Then, from the back, one of the others, Jonas, a former biology teacher, speaks. "There's a theory," he says, "that cockroaches could survive a nuclear war. But radiation isn't the only threat anymore. It's the ecosystem collapse. Without plants, there are no herbivores. Without herbivores, no predators. It's not about toughness, it's about balance." "But I saw a fox," Micah insists. Jonas smiles, but it's tired. "Then I hope that fox finds a mate." That night, while watching the sky from the edge of a ridge, you finally see movement. A ripple of dark shapes across the heavens, not birds, satellites. Thousands of them, once orbiting in a neat chain, now drifting in spirals, pieces falling, burning up, others frozen in useless patterns. It's a sad ballet, technology crumbling above you, just as the ground beneath your feet breaks apart. One satellite falls in your line of sight, a streak of silver and orange arcing like a firework and vanishing behind a hill. You don't hear it land, but you feel the impact, a small tremor in the ground, like Earth reacting to one of its children coming home broken. Later you write in your journal, not because you think anyone will read it, but because words still matter, memory still matters, and so you write, "Day. The sky is a bruise, the earth is boiling, but people still walk, still reach for the E. Deed of the map, and in their steps they plant the seeds of future stories." Micah adds a drawing at the bottom, a stick figure holding a fox's paw, both of them facing a hill. The sun is drawn large and round in the top corner, with little X's for eyes. You laugh, not because it's funny, but because it's real. And sometimes, even in the quietest apocalypse, you need to laugh to remember you're alive. You begin to understand something vital about this world as your boots grind through brittle pine needles and heat-blistered roots. It doesn't care if you remember the old names. The town you pass through once had a name, something probably carved into a wooden sign hung over a diner with chipped turquoise stools and a jukebox that hadn't worked since before the pause. But now it's nameless, or rather, it belongs to new names, names you give it quietly as you pass. Glass Tree Crossing, the burnt library, Stillwater Hill. The map in Lisa's hand is almost useless now. Rivers have shifted or dried completely. Roads end in crevasses. Entire neighborhoods are buried under dust blown in from the southern deserts. But she keeps it anyway, because it reminds her, reminds all of you, that direction still matters. Even if the compass can't be trusted. You've been traveling for nearly 2 weeks now. Your body has adapted, or it's begun to. You take slower steps. You drink constantly, though water is harder to come by with each passing day. The group has learned to spot condensation zones, places where dew still collects beneath ruined rooftops or in the shadows of broken wind turbines. The strange taste never leaves. That faint hint of metal on your tongue, like old batteries and rain. You pass a rusting school bus halfway buried in a ditch. Its windows are blown out. Inside, it's a tomb of melted crayons and cracked plastic. One of the others peers in and says softly, "Looks like they just stepped off, like they might come back." But they won't. They can't. Net scientists still argue whether human memory is more powerful than biology, whether our ability to recall images, stories, even smells, might outlast our physical thresholds. Could memory sustain someone beyond what their body should endure? Could the sheer desire to return, to rebuild, drive adaptation faster than evolution? As you walk past the bus, you feel your breath grow tighter. It isn't just the elevation, or the dust, or even the lack of sleep. It's the oxygen. Lice confirms it that evening. The small O2 sensor clipped to her belt shows a 4% drop since the start of the journey. That may not sound like much, but to your lungs, it's everything. Some members of the group have begun to sleep more. Others wake confused, as if dreams are melting into waking. Low oxygen doesn't kill immediately. It dulls you, blurs you. You can see it in Jonas's eyes, glassy and tired. He coughs in the mornings now, short, sharp bursts, always saying it's fine, always brushing it off. You don't believe him. Still, you press eastward. One morning, while climbing a low hill near the remains of what used to be a freeway overpass, you spot something unusual, a structure intact, not a ruin, not a shell, intact. You approach carefully. It's a domed shelter made of geodesic triangles, aluminum and reflective polymers. A solar collector spreads out beside it like a metallic sunflower, tracking the frozen sun. Someone lived here, maybe still does. Micah presses his ear to the door. I hear humming, he whispers. Electricity. You knock. There's no answer. You knock again. Then the door slides open with a hiss and a figure steps into the frame. She's old, mid-60s, maybe more, but her eyes are sharp. She wears a jumpsuit patched with old tech company logos, and her voice is steady when she says, "You're the first people I've seen in 17 days. You're lucky I'm still rationing kindness." Her name is Marion. A retired aerospace engineer turned post-collapse homesteader, Marion's shelter is part of a survival experiment once funded by a now-defunct government grant. Used to be a Mars analog habitat, she says, pouring you hot water with herbs. Now it's Earth analog. You sit in her common room, a softly lit chamber with cushions, salvaged books, and neat rows of hydroponic lettuce. She offers everyone a small bowl of soup made from algae, soy paste, and something you suspect used to be peas. It tastes like memory. You said you're heading to Newfoundland, Marion says after everyone is settled. Radio transmissions? Lise nods. 6-hour intervals. Magnetic field still holding, supposedly. Marion leans back, tapping her fingers together. I've been tracking field anomalies on my old magnetometer. It's not perfect, but I've noticed a pulse pattern out east. Could be a surviving node. A node, you ask? Remnant geomagnetic pocket, she explains. The Earth's field isn't gone, it's fragmented. Think of it like a cracked egg. Some places still have shell, some are just yolk. She pulls up a dusty monitor. A black screen flickers to life, displaying a crude field map, waves of blue, yellow, and blood orange. A small green dot blinks near the northeast edge. That's your signal, she says. That's where they are. Hope, once a whisper, becomes a sound again. That night, under Marion's filtered dome, you sleep in artificial twilight for the first time in weeks. The air is cool, the pressure controlled, and there's music. An old track looping from a salvaged MP3 player, piano, slow and mournful, a lullaby for a world trying to remember how to dream. You wake in the dark, truly dark, no sun leaking through seams, no glow of radiation across the sky. You rush to the dome's outer window. The sun is still there, but something is different. You see them. Stars. Not many, not bright, but they're there. Small glints in the haze like needles through gauze. They shimmer faintly above the polluted veil, distant and stubborn. You call Lise. She stares upward for a long time, eyes wide. Jonas weeps openly. Because those stars, those tiny flecks of light, mean the dust is thinning. Maybe only briefly, maybe only here, but it means Earth, even now, is still breathing. The sky hasn't fully closed its eyes. Marion says it could be due to a break in the upper atmosphere caused by thermal layering or shifting wind shears. A wrinkle in the air, she calls it, one of Earth's last sighs. But you don't care why, you just stare. You remember your first planetarium visit, lying beneath a domed sky, watching a simulated night bloom above. This is better, this is real. Micah points to a cluster and whispers, "Is that Orion?" Lise nods. "He's still hunting," she says. The next morning, you say your goodbyes. Marion gives you a sealed pack of algae tablets and a folded printout of her magnetic field data. "If the signal changes, I'll send an automated burst," she says, "frequencies taped to your radio." You thank her. She doesn't hug anyone, but she salutes. And somehow, that feels like enough. As you walk away, you glance back. Her dome is already shrinking behind the hills, a small light, a breath of sanity in the madness. The landscape turns to shale and broken stone. The trees vanish again. But in the back of your mind, a thought blooms like a promise. There are still stars. The world hasn't ended yet, and you are not alone. By the third week, time itself begins to feel like a story someone else told you once. Without sunrise or sunset, the division of day and night dissolves into a rhythm defined only by your body. When it aches, when it hungers, when it sleeps, You count time now in footsteps, in meals, in the slow crawl of your shadow across fractured earth. The stars still flicker occasionally, but never for long. They return like shy animals, briefly, cautiously, before slipping back behind the haze. Each reappearance lifts the group's spirit just a little. It's enough to remind you that above the broken sky, space still waits in its cold quiet, untouched by Earth's stillness. You pass through what used to be upstate New York, though the towns are so badly burned and buried under ash you only recognize the landscape from Marion's printout. Rolling hills, once forested, now shimmer with reflective layers of radioactive dust. It looks like snow, but it isn't snow. There's no coolness in it, only poison. Jonas, still coughing, wears a cloth filter mask nearly all the time now. His eyes are bloodshot and his skin has taken on a faint rash. Radiation exposure likely. Not lethal yet, but accumulating. He doesn't complain. One night, under the cracked shelter of an old train tunnel, he tells Micah stories about railroads, how they were once arteries of life. Steel veins, he calls them. They made the country breathe. Now the rails are warped and twisted like brittle bones under pressure. You run your hand along one, feel the heat it still carries, residual solar energy absorbed during constant, unfiltered exposure. Micah asks, "Why didn't we build underground, like mole cities?" Jonas chuckles and coughs again. "We had the time, we just didn't use it." That silence follows you for the next several miles. Then something new appears in the landscape, a field of glass, miles wide, not man-made. This wasn't a factory or even a solar farm. It's natural glass, or what passes for natural now. Sand melted by the sun's unblinking stare has fused into sheets of obsidian, shimmering, uneven, jagged in places, an accidental mirror. The ground beneath your feet crunches like broken windows. The glass is hot, too hot to touch without gloves, but you walk across it anyway, careful, deliberate. The sight is staggering, an entire valley converted into a molten memorial, a frozen wave of sunlight and time. You stop in the center to look down at your reflection. You barely recognize yourself. The lines in your face have deepened. Your hair is dusted with sediment and ash. The eyes that meet you in the mirror are yours, but older. Lise steps beside you, holding a scrap of old foil she's bent into a makeshift visor. "You look like someone who survived," she says. You don't respond, not because you disagree, but because it's the first time you've realized you might not. You camp that night on the far edge of the glass field, near a grove of short, gnarled trees that appear burned at the roots. Their trunks are blackened, their leaves grey with ash. But they stand. That's what matters. They stand. Lisa shares a theory as you rest, that some plants may be evolving faster now, mutations accelerated by radiation, a sort of rapid adaptation under environmental pressure. Some of them won't survive, she says, but some will. There's always something that thrives where others die. It's comforting in a way to know that even here, even now, life is still trying. A historical tidbit comes to you, half remembered. In Hiroshima, after the bomb fell, the first plant to grow back was a persimmon tree, scorched and split but still alive. It's still there today, in fact. People visit it, take seeds, grow descendants. You wonder what tree will be this world's first phoenix. 2 days later, Jonas collapses. The group is resting near the remnants of an overpass, its concrete limbs dangling above like the bones of some ancient beast. Jonas is gathering firewood when he simply buckles. No cry, no scream, just a quiet fall, like a curtain dropping at the end of a performance. You rush to him. He's alive, but barely. His pulse. He is slow. His breathing shallow. Radiation sickness, starvation, oxygen deprivation. Maybe all of them. You make a stretcher from salvaged tent fabric and old broom handles. For 3 days you take turns carrying him. He doesn't speak much. When he does, it's in fragments, memories mostly, a field trip he once led, his wife's laughter in the rain, the sound of jazz echoing off a New Orleans balcony. Micah never leaves his side. Lise whispers to you during the night. If we don't reach the magnetic pocket soon, we'll lose him. But where is soon? The transmission from Newfoundland has gone quiet. 3 days with no signal. You check the radio every few hours, adjusting the antenna, changing angles. Nothing, just static. The kind that feels like it's whispering something you can't quite hear. The others begin to murmur. What if the field collapsed there too? What if they were wrong? But then, as you camp beside the bones of an abandoned lighthouse, its beam long shattered and its stairs leading to nowhere, the radio crackles. A voice, faint, broken, but real. Northern node, survivors, relocation imminent, still active. It's enough. Lise circles the location on the map again. We're close. Another 100 miles, maybe less. 100 miles. It might as well be 1,000. The land here has become jagged. Hills rise in strange, unnatural ways, as if tectonic plates are beginning to warp under the strain of imbalance. Earthquakes have been reported across the continent, minor ones for now, but they're increasing. Without the stabilizing spin, stress builds in the planet's crust like pressure in a sealed jar. You feel it every few days, small tremors beneath your feet, the earth shivering like a frightened animal. Micah keeps asking if the earth is dying. No one answers him. Not because they don't know, but because they do. Still, you walk. Because walking forward is the only thing that proves you're not finished. One night with Jonas drifting in and out of consciousness. Yes, he whispers something to you. You know the best part of teaching? You lean in. It's not the lessons, he says. It's the silence, right after you say something important, when the kids... They stop talking, and they think. That silence means they heard you. He smiles faintly. This world, this stillness, maybe it's not death. Maybe it's just that silence, that pause, before something begins again. You sit with him the rest of the night thinking about that, about how sometimes the world doesn't end with a bang, but with a breath held too long, and maybe, just maybe, someone, somewhere, will exhale again. The road to the last magnetic field begins with a sound you haven't heard in weeks. Water. Not just dripping from a broken pipe or pooling beneath a shattered gutter. This is movement, real movement. A shallow stream winding between the bones of what was once a deciduous forest, now reduced to bare trunks and powdered leaves. The water gleams like silver under the ever-staring sun, which now seems somehow softer here, diffused behind thin, high-altitude clouds. You kneel beside it and scoop up a palmful. It tastes of stone, old roots, and just a hint of iron, but it's fresh, unboiled, untainted. Lisa immediately sets up the purifier anyway. Practice turned ritual. She's no longer just your navigator. She's become the guardian of thresholds, the one who decides what enters your body, your air, your water. She tests everything. Jonas stirs weakly from the sled you've rigged for him. His skin is pallid now, his eyes sunken, but he looks toward the water and murmurs, God, that sounds like home. You don't ask what home meant to him. You're not even sure what it means to you anymore. The next hours are quieter, not silent like before, not the dead quiet of abandoned cities or lifeless forests, but a true hush, a reverent, windless stillness. You hear your own breathing. Nang, your heartbeat, even the scrape of Micah's boots against packed soil sounds like a conversation, and then you hear something else. Leaves. Real ones. Green. You don't believe it at first. You blink, thinking it's your eyes playing tricks again. But no, it's a vine, curling up the side of a stone wall, its leaves glossy and wide, trembling gently in the light breeze. Beside it, a clump of something low and bushy grows in defiance of logic. Clover, or maybe chickweed, alive. Lise crouches to examine the soil. Magnetic particles, she murmurs, running her fingers through the dirt. More here than anywhere we've passed. She reaches for her magnetometer. It chirps. The signal is stronger, clearer. You've entered the field's edge. Newfoundland isn't far now, perhaps just a few days if the terrain holds. The landscape itself begins to shift. Instead of brittle and sun-bleached, the world now seems like it's been rinsed. Not lush, not vibrant, but possible. As if nature is staging a quiet comeback here, one seed at a time. That night you camp near what used to be a fire tower. Its stairs are broken halfway up, but Micah insists on climbing it. Lise helps him. From the top they spot a shape in the distance, a dome, like Marion's, but larger. The next morning you pack what little remains. Your food stores are almost gone. You've lost weight. Your clothes hang looser, but no one complains. The pain has become background noise, like the ever-present hum in your ears. You walk for hours following the signal until it becomes something real, a hum, then a buzz, then lights. Faint at first, solar LEDs strung through trees buried halfway in moss but still working, then the faint whir of turbines, small ones, home-built, fashioned from parts you recognize, bicycle spokes, fans, weather vanes. The closer you get, the more signs you see. Someone built this, someone preserved it, and then the forest opens. There it is. A settlement, not a village, not a fortress, something in between. Geodesic domes and shipping containers all painted wit. It's heat-reflective paint. Wind turbines line the ridge. The sun hangs low behind it, casting everything in gold. And standing at the gate is a woman in a yellow jacket holding a radiation meter. She smiles when she sees you. It's not just a reflex, it's recognition. "You made it," she says. Her name is Nadia. She's one of the voices from the transmission. Behind her, others begin to appear. People, not just survivors, families, engineers, children. Micah stares in awe. The gate opens. You enter. The shift is immediate. The air is thicker, cooler, and there's a faint vibration underfoot, a hum from beneath, deep in the ground. Lise explains what you're feeling. "A buried reactor," she says, eyes wide. "Geothermal, low yield, just enough to power systems. They stabilize this zone. It's not a fantasy. It's not a hallucination brought on by hunger or hope. This place is real." You're led through the settlement, past aquaponics tanks filled with green algae and tilapia, vertical farms growing lettuce and kale in tight, recycled rows. Children run between the tents laughing, carrying buckets of water. Some wear scarves and gloves to protect against UV rays, but their skin is healthy, their cheeks flush with real color. Jonas is moved to the medical dome immediately. They have medicine, not a hospital, nothing that fancy, but care. Cooling packs, antivirals, IV fluids. A nurse named Declan works quickly and efficiently, aided by machines older than Micah but maintained with reverence. He says Jonas has a chance, and that's enough. You are given rest. Not just sleep, but rest. A place to lie where nothing is burning. A bed with clean fabric, food with flavor, rice and rehydrated beans, a slice of something that might have been grown with garlic. You eat slowly, reverently, and then, for the first time in weeks, you breathe. Later that evening, Nadia sits with your group by a searing fire. Yes, a real fire, carefully contained, and tells you the story. "We figured it out early," she says. "Before the spin ended, some of us realized what was happening, not the full stop, not yet, but the signs, the weakening magnetosphere, the changes in orbital wobble. The gravity shifts." Lise nods, eyes flickering. "So we left," Nadia continues, "came north, looked for places where the field remained stable, patches where the core's motion hadn't fully stalled." Micah looks confused. "Wait, the Earth stopped, but the core didn't?" Nadia smiles. "That's the debate, isn't it? Scientists still argue whether the core is fully locked or just slowed. If it's still moving even a little, that means localized fields are possible. Weak but real. And enough to survive. You feel warmth spread through your chest. Possibility. Nadia leads you to their central archive, a shipping container converted into a library of sorts. Inside are journals, maps, solar logs, climate data, and most importantly, stories. "They don't get preserved otherwise," she says. "Not in the cloud, not anymore. We print everything, bind it, bury backup copies in lead-lined canisters." You leaf through a binder titled The Pause, Year 1. Inside, someone has drawn sketches of the magnetic anomaly as it was forming. Another page contains a child's poem about the last snow before the spin stopped. Lise whispers, "It's like they remembered for us." Outside, the stars are visible again. brighter than before. And as the fire crackles and the group settles into the soft rhythm of community, of hope, you find yourself drifting into the first true sleep you've had since the earth stood still. Not just because your body needs it, but because, finally, your mind allows it. In this small pocket of magnetic grace, beneath a sky that hasn't given up, you're reminded that survival isn't just a resistance to death, it's the promise of a future. Morning comes, though the sun hasn't moved a millimeter. But you feel the change. It's not light that wakes you. There's no dawn or dusk to mark anything anymore. It's warmth, a steady, gentle kind of warmth that comes not from radiation or desperation, but from within. Your body, rehydrated, nourished. Your muscles, though still tired, no longer ache with malnutrition or dehydration. It feels strange, almost guilty. You rise slowly and step outside the dome you were given for the night. The ground is soft beneath your boots, wood chips and moss carefully laid to prevent soil erosion. Around you, others are stirring, not out of fear or urgency, but routine, the kind of morning bustle that civilization used to take for granted. Water buckets sloshing, quiet footsteps, murmurs of conversation. It smells like rosemary and boiled grains. Nadia finds you on the walkway between two growing tents. She's carrying a stack of blankets, her sleeves rolled up and her face already smudged with soil. "We'll need extra beds tonight," she says. Another group radioed in, from the Midwest, might be 20 of them. Your eyebrows rise. "You're still accepting people?" She nods. "As many as we can. The zone's holding. For now." "For now," you repeat. She pauses and glances at the hazy sky, where a sliver of blue peeks through. "This place isn't permanent," she says. "None of it is, but that doesn't mean we wait around for collapse. It means we prepare." That preparation is everywhere you look. A low-frequency transmitter sits in the center of the settlement, slowly pinging out Morse code messages across the planet, or what's left of the communicative planet. It repeats coordinates, the phrase viable field node, and the date. A tether of hope flung out to anyone who might still be listening. Lacey joins you soon after breakfast, wearing clean clothes for the first time in weeks. She looks like herself again, alert, focused. "There are those chives are incredible," she says. "They've mapped every pulse in the magnetic remnants for the last 2 years. Nadia's team figured out something profound." You follow her to the main research dome. Inside, holographic maps rotate in slow cycles. Earth, your Earth, hovering mid-air, scarred and discolored. The equator is marked in fading red, indicating the death belt. The mid-latitudes glow a soft amber, but the polar regions, especially parts of northern Canada, Greenland, and Scandinavia, flicker with a soft green shimmer. "Residual loops," Nadia explains. "Not full magnetospheres, but echoes, weak fields generated by core fragments that haven't entirely stopped moving." Lisa adds, "They call them whispers." You watch as one green shimmer near where you are expands slightly. "Every time someone enters a viable node," Nadia says, "the human electromagnetic field interacts with it, stabilizes it, even briefly. That's why we need people here, not just to survive, but to preserve the Earth's last heartbeat." That idea hits you like a breath of cold air. You'd always thought of survival as passive, enduring, resisting, waiting. But now you realize you're not just surviving, you're participating, living bodies generating microcurrents, subtly influencing a dying planet's ability to protect itself. That afternoon, you take part in the settlement's ritual, the planting hour. Every evening, as the temperature dips slightly and the sky turns to its permanent near dusk, everyone takes time, no matter their role, to sow or tend something. You're given a tray of seedlings, kale mostly, with a few resilient bean sprouts, and a space in one of the vertical planters near the eastern fence. Lise works beside you, humming softly. Even Micah joins, his hands carefully digging small divots into the nutrient paste made from recycled compost and powdered algae. It's slow work, meditative. You begin to see why they do it. In a world where nothing moves, you move. In a world where time no longer flows, you mark the hours with seeds. That night, Tur planting, there's a small gathering in the community square. It's not a celebration. Celebration feels too grand, too alien now, but a moment of shared breath. Someone plays a harmonica. Another person reads a poem written on biodegradable cloth. Micah is asked to draw on the wall of memories, a public mural where survivors mark something they remember from before. He draws a tree, a big one with roots that reach down past the soil, curling around a buried city. Jonas, still recovering in the infirmary, is brought out in a wheelchair. His skin is healing, his cough softer now. He smiles when he sees the drawing. "That's not a memory," he says. "That's a prophecy." Later, you sit by the dome's edge, staring out into the shadows beyond the settlement. You think of everything that had to go wrong for you to get here, every collapse, every silence, every burn. But you also think of the tiny moments, Marion's dome, the fox, the whisper of stars. You wonder what this place will look like in a year, if Earth will spin again. That's the question on everyone's lips, but no one dares ask aloud, will the Earth ever move again? Scientists still argue about it. Some believe the planet might reboot, that under the right conditions, with internal pressures rebalanced and external radiation partially deflected, Earth's rotation could begin slowly once more. A crawl, a spin measured in years instead of hours. Others say it's done. That the initial stop, a moment triggered by gravitational turbulence from deep space anomalies or internal core mantle misalignment, was irreversible. Nadia shows you a model on one of the holoscreens, a spinning Earth gradually slowing, its core lagging behind until everything ceases, the moment of stasis. Then, nothing. A pause so long, time forgets motion. But she also shows you another model, a flicker, a twitch, not from external influence, but from within. The theory is simple. Heat will continue to build at Earth's center, pressure, tension, and one day, maybe in 100 years, maybe 1,000, that energy will force the core to stir again, just enough. A sigh, a jolt, the beginning of a new day, and if that happens, the settlement must be here. People must be ready, because when that twitch comes, even if it's just a millimeter of shift, it could unlock every system, restart weather, relight tides, reactivate the magnetic shield. If it comes, Nadia says, we can't be asleep. That night, you lie in your dome, unable to sleep, not from fear, but from wonder. You picture the Earth waking up, a great leviathan rousing from stillness, a creak beneath the mantle, a stretch of magnetic muscle, a rebalancing of forces too vast to comprehend. You picture Micah grown, walking under moving stars. You picture Lise teaching children how to build wind turbines and navigate by sun angle. You picture Jonas, old but still smiling, telling stories about the glass fields and the fox and the compass that still quivered even when north didn't exist. You feel sleep begin to pull you under, not as escape, but as rest, true rest. Tomorrow there will be work. Another group arriving, another pulse to study, another whisper of motion to chase. But for now, here in this fragile place of green and warmth and electric hope, you let go and dream. You wake before the others, rising into the slow stillness with a strange kind of clarity. The dreams have started to shift, less about fire and ash now and more about movement. Strange phantom sensations of being carried forward, of rivers flowing, of clouds racing across a sky that no longer exists. Your subconscious remembers the spin, even if your body no longer feels it. The settlement is quiet. A few early risers are already at the solar banks, checking battery levels. One of them waves to you, you wave back. It's a small thing, that gesture, but it means everything. You are not alone. As you make your way toward the east end of the settlement, something catches your eye, a glacis, immer in the distance. At first, you think it's another mirrored surface, maybe a lingering patch of heat-scorched glass, but then it moves, a slow, deliberate shimmer, metal catching the sun. You call Lise. She joins you with a scope, her brows furrowed as she adjusts the lens. That's a vehicle. Your chest tightens. A survivor group? Maybe. Word spreads quickly. Nadia orders a team to prep for contact. This isn't the first time strangers have approached, but it's always risky. With the Earth in stasis, desperation can make even the kindest soul into something feral. By midday, the vehicle arrives. It's a crawler, a tracked transport from the old Arctic research initiatives. The paint is worn, and its solar sails are frayed from dust storms, but it moves with mechanical grace. It hums like a tired animal. It stops 50 yards outside the gate. A signal light blinks red, then green. Then a door hisses open. 5 figures step out. All wear matching pressure suits, sleek, reinforced with scavenged polymer, tinted visors hiding their faces. For a moment they stand still, and then the tallest raises 2 hands in the air. Universal gesture. We come in peace. You and Nadia step forward. When the visors lift, you see their faces, worn, sun-browned, pale at the edges from filtered living. They look astonished. You're real, the leader breathes. Her voice is ragged from travel. We picked up your signal. We weren't sure. Nadia smiles. Neither were we. The group is brought inside, decontaminated, and offered food and water. They eat with the frantic, silent gratitude you remember from your first hours here. You don't ask questions at first. You wait, let them catch their breath. Later, the woman, her name is Tasha, tells her story. They're from Greenland, or what remains of it. After the Earth's spin slowed to a halt, the far north saw less collapse than expected. We thought we could ride it out, she says. We didn't realize the weather systems would stop completely. Our turbines died, the ice began melting from solar heat exposure. We thought the cold would save us. She pauses. It didn't. The others nod solemnly. What remains of their group has fractured into smaller nodes. They used to have a network of settlements, thermal shelters partially underground, but communications began failing months ago. One by one, the outposts went silent. The crawler team left on a gamble, following Nadia's signal across half a continent. Tasha shows a hand-drawn map, coordinates, frequencies, places that once burned with hope now crossed out. We think we're the last. Her voice cracks on that word, last. You place a hand on her shoulder. You're not. They settle in quickly. Engineers among them begin working on reactivating one of the long-range antennas. Nadia's team had lost a few of the satellite links months ago. Tasha's crew has the parts. More importantly, they have experience working with solar stabilization gear, technology originally designed for managing energy input in polar regions where the sun never set. It might be possible, they say, to regulate light within the dome area, to recreate the circadian rhythm, fake dawn and dusk. It's not just comfort, it's survival. The human body, even here, needs rhythm to thrive. Hormone cycles, immune response, digestion, all of it is tied to time. Circadian disruption is killing people faster than we thought, says one of Tasha's crewmates, a former chronobiologist named Riyadh. Sleep fragmentation, immune suppression, it's subtle but it builds. And out there, he gestures toward the broken horizon. There's no way to recover. You remember the weeks you spent walking, the strange insomnia, the confusion, the numbness. He's right. So, together, you begin building. It's slow, delicate work. Panels are installed along the perimeter of the main dome. Light modulators are rigged to cycle through color temperatures, cool white for morning, warm gold for evening. A tiny shift every 6 hours, enough to mimic a world that used to move. The first day it runs, no one notices. The second day, people begin to wake more naturally. On the third, a child, one of the new arrivals from the crawler, says, "It feels like the sun blinked. It's working." And you realize something. This is more than a trick. It's defiance. The Earth may have stopped, but you haven't. You gather that night in the main square. The harmonica plays again, Micah this time, learning quickly. The new arrivals add their own customs, a song in Greenlandic, haunting and soft. Tasha lights a ceremonial lamp made from old turbine parts and a filter casing. "Let this light," she says, "mark the turning of what no longer turns." Later you walk with Lise through the growing zone. She seems different now, softer, but more certain. "We used to think survival was just avoiding death," she says. "But this is about teaching the planet how to spin again." You look at her. "You think it'll happen?" She nods slowly. "I think it already is. Not the core, not the axis, but us. We're the rotation now. We're the cycle. That night, you sit alone near the outer fence, facing east. The stars are faint. The sky still rusts with particles. But there, on the horizon, you see it. A flicker, a low, reddish glow, not fire, not destruction. Aurora. A rare one, faint and patchy, likely distorted by the broken field, but real. A dance of particles and light, a magnetic kiss from the universe. You whisper to yourself, it's not over. And somewhere, deep beneath your feet, the earth hears you and waits. The aurora fades by morning, but the imprint it leaves behind is stronger than any speech or signal. It's talked about all day, how the shimmer had moved across the eastern sky like a slow ripple of breath distorted by the fractured magnetosphere. Yes, but unmistakable. Some people swear it mad. No sound. Others claim they heard a kind of whisper, like the rustling of old paper or voices underwater. You say nothing, but deep down you felt something too. Not a sound, not a sight, a pressure in your chest, like standing on the threshold of something ancient and watching it stir. Later, Lisa brings the magnetometer logs to the main hall. Here, she says, tapping a highlighted segment. A shift, small but clear. The field trembled, just for a few minutes. Nadia squints at the screen. Could be solar flare residue. Or, Lise replies, it could be feedback, a twitch from below, the same kind of movement that formed the old dynamo. That word makes everyone pause. Dynamo, the self-sustaining engine at Earth's core that once created the magnetic field. Its collapse is what accelerated the planet's freeze in the first place. Scientists still argue whether that core is truly dead. Some believe it's frozen solid, magnetically inert. Others suggest that molten pockets remain, still churning slightly like coals in a long dormant fire. In fringe circles, theories even propose that humanity's mass electromagnetic interaction with the surface could stimulate it, a planetary defibrillator of sorts. Just walking, Lisa says quietly, might be a form of CPR. The idea is bold, almost mythic, but it spreads. Over the next few days, the settlement takes on a new rhythm. People are walking more. Deliberate circuits around the magnetic node zone. Children play tag across plotted fields. Workers stroll instead of ride. Each footstep becomes symbolic, a pulse. You take part too, not just for the science, for your own grounding. And on one of these walks, while following an old deer trail that loops through a copse of recovering pine trees, you find something unexpected. A tower. Not tall, not looming, just a stub of steel jutting from the forest like a buried antenna. Its structure is corroded but recognizable. An old atmospheric sensor station, once part of the continental climate. E-monitoring grid, probably abandoned in the early days of the spin-down. You call it in. Later that afternoon, a recovery team arrives. Tasha and Micah help dig the base free from sediment and vines. A hatch is pried open. Inside, beneath layers of dust and mildew, lies something miraculous. A sealed data cache. Real-time Earth metrics from the collapse period, wind patterns, electromagnetic decay, solar impact ratios. All time-stamped, all untouched. The data is carried back to the research dome and slotted into one of the last working analog readers. Everyone gathers around. The projections it generates are crude, just red dots on a slowly darkening globe. But each one is a heartbeat, a record. Lise almost cries. We thought all of this was lost, she whispers, and then something even more remarkable happens. One of the sequences, a magnetic resonance pattern dated 3 weeks after Earth fully stopped, begins to loop. A wave, a pulse, and then a backward curl. A magnetic echo returning toward its source. This wasn't just the field collapsing. It had tried to reform. Nadia leans forward, stunned. We were wrong. The system didn't just end. It fought. The energy wasn't enough to relight the field, but it tried. An instinctive push from the planet's own interior, almost like a flinch. Everyone in the room goes silent, because if Earth tried once, it could try again. You don't speak of hope aloud, not in words. Hope is fragile now. Too many have lost it before. But the air in the dome feels different. charged. That night, Jonas asks to be wheeled outside. He's stronger now, thinner, yes, but clearer-eyed. His hands don't shake when he holds a warm cup of kelp broth. You sit beside him under the dome's artificial nightlight, amber and soft, mimicking a summer evening. "Did I miss the aurora?" he asks. You nod. He smiles faintly. "Just my luck." Then he turns serious. "I've been thinking a lot about stories," he says. "What survives, what doesn't. And I think the stories we choose to tell right now, the ones we leave behind, they might be the only inheritance that matters." You ask him what kind of story he'd want to leave. He closes his eyes and whispers that we walked forward even when the world refused to turn. You remember those words the next morning when Tasha's crew finishes calibrating the long-range transmitter. For the first time since your arrival, they initiate a wide pulse broadcast, extending beyond North America, a looped message encoded with coordinates, magnetic frequency, atmospheric tolerances, an invitation. It reads, "This is Sanctuary Node 12. The field holds, the people hold, you are not alone. The Earth is waiting." The transmission plays on repeat every 30 minutes, and 2 days later, someone answers. A voice, faint, warbled, but human. The accent is South African, the signal is weak, but the message is clear. Another node survived, near what used to be Lesotho, high ground, shielded from early solar burnouts. The woman speaking calls herself Amari. She says they have fewer than 50 left, water's tight, power's flickering, but they heard your signal. They're coming. It'll take months, maybe more, but they're moving, walking, crawling, driving, whatever still works. The Earth remains still, but now people are moving toward each other. Movement, however small, however slow. Jonas grins when he hears the message. "I told you," he says. "It's just a long silence, not the end." You spend the next week preparing, building extra shelters, testing air filters, stabilizing crops, and teaching, always teaching. Micah begins classes with the children, solar math, planting cycles, magnetic fields. He shows them how to track light movement and how to spot fake dawns, illusions caused by refraction through thick dust layers. You help him draw a mural behind the school dome. It shows Earth not as it was, but as it could be, surrounded by stars, roots growing from its crust, people walking in spirals across the surface, coaxing the spin back with every footstep. "Do you think it'll work?" Micah asks you one evening, eyes fixed on the stars. You shrug. "Does it matter?" He looks confused. So you explain. "The spin might come back, or it might not. But the point is, we keep moving. That's how we tell the Earth we're not done." Micah nods slowly. He's quiet for a moment. Then he says something that stays with you. "If the Earth wakes up, I want it to find us dancing." That night, you dance. Quietly. Just a few of you. No music, no rhythm, no choreography. Just movement. Small steps. Twirls. Breath and bodies. Around the firelight beneath the still stars. Movement in a world that no longer moves. It's the sound of hammering that greets you the next morning, not frantic, methodical, purposeful. The kind of sound you used to hear in cities long gone, carpenters framing a door, electricians laying conduit. It's a rhythm of rebuilding, of making space. The new shelters are going up fast, the materials are humble. Fabricated polycanvas over aluminum bones patched with scavenged insulation panels, but each one is insulated and anchored to the frozen soil. These are not temporary tents, these are roots. Tasha's team leads the construction. They work like they're racing time, which in a way they are. Every day the atmosphere thins further. Every week another satellite dies. Communications grow patchier. Radiation exposure creeps higher in zones outside the nodes. Lice oversees the shielding layers, applying mylar reflective coatings and layering UV-resistant mesh over the outer domes. It's her obsession now, not just keeping people safe, but maintaining a cycle. She's convinced the electricités. Magnetic balance of each individual node depends not just on staying alive, but on moving with rhythm. There has to be pulse, she repeats often. There has to be flow. Micah builds a sundial. You laugh the first time you see it. What's the point? But then you realize it's not to tell time. It's a symbol, a reminder, a place to stand and watch shadows crawl, however slowly. If the planet refuses to spin, Micah insists, then you will. So he charts the arc of light each hour, recording every microscopic change. A few days later, the Lesotho team sends another transmission. They've reached the remnants of Angola. One of their trucks gave out, but they've traded with a survivor enclave for an old hydrogen bike rig, still functional. The group is smaller than expected, 41 souls, 1 infant, 3 dogs. They ask for a weather readout, solar intensity, atmospheric toxicity. You send them the data and Nadia includes a message from one of the settlement's children. "We have soup waiting." It makes the Lesotho team cry, so you send soup recipes next time, just to keep the thread alive. Jonas is on his feet again. He walks with a cane made from a snapped irrigation pole, but he walks, and he teaches. Every afternoon, a semicircle of listeners forms beneath the largest wind tower. They call it the Old University. It's not much, just a few benches and a chalkboard bolted to the frame, but knowledge rings there. Today, he lectures on ancient history, the 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora, the year without a summer, a time when volcanic ash turned the skies red and crops failed, when snow fell in June in New England and starvation swept through Europe. But the world didn't end, Jonas says, his voice raspier but rich. It adapted, it stumbled, yes, but it found footing. One of the teens asks if Earth will find footing again. Jonas nods. It always does, but it's never the same footing. There's a kind of reverence in the silence that follows. That night you sit alone in the power control room. A few of the geothermal systems are being recalibrated. You volunteered to monitor overnight levels. It's quiet work. Numbers on screens, dials, pressure readings, temperature flux. But while you're there, the radio crackles. A new signal, different coordinates, different voice, European, maybe Swiss. Static, then clarity. This is node 16. Repeat, node 16, Alps zone. Repeat, Alps zone. Field is partial but stable. Survivors total 23, moving east. Respond if, then silence. You log the message, you alert Nadia. The next morning, the entire settlement buzzes with the news. Another node. That makes at least 4, maybe 5, depending on the Brazilian reports Tasha believes are legitimate. The Earth is still a graveyard, but its heart has not stopped beating entirely. Later that day, something extraordinary happens. Lise runs into the settlement square shouting for everyone to come to the research dome. You follow. Inside, she's projecting new readings. The magnetic flux graph, normally flat or barely pulsing, shows a surge, a tiny but clear jump, not noise, not static, a legitimate fluctuation. It wasn't internal, she explains breathlessly. It was external, a micro-correction from the upper field layers, like a twitch in the atmospheric interface. Something resisted solar radiation. It shouldn't be possible unless... She looks at the data again. It's a feedback loop. You don't understand at first, but Jonas does. He whispers, the Earth is remembering how to protect itself. The data shows a faint strengthening of magnetic polarity, not consistent, not strong, but pulsing in time with recent aurora activity. A flare had passed near Mars 3 days ago. Somehow, instead of eroding what was left of the shield, it was deflected, partially, imperfectly, but unmistakably. Something bounced it, Lise says, or absorbed it. Scientists used to argue whether remnants of the magnetosphere could act as trap layers without a full dynamo. The answer always leaned toward no, but this is new. This is evidence. You step outside as word spreads. It's not like a celebration, not quite, but people begin to move differently. Lighter. Someone starts whistling. Someone else ties small prayer flags to the base of the wind tower. Not religious, just grateful. Tasha writes the word breathe in chalk on the side of the water tanks. And Micah, you find him at his sundial, smiling. He points. It moved, just a millimeter, but it moved. You crouch beside him. He's right. The shadow is in a new place. It could be atmospheric lensing, it could be soil shift, but it could be more. It could be Earth turning, infinitesimally, stubbornly, like an old machine remembering its purpose. That night, people stay up late, not because they're afraid, but because they want to be awake for whatever comes next. You lie under a sky filled with stars, trying to remember what night once sounded like before the world broke. And then, for the first time in a long while, you hear wind. Real wind. A breath of atmosphere stirred by something deeper than surface pressure. It moves across the treetops like a whisper, like something waking. Lisa joins you, hair ruffling in the breeze. She says nothing. You both just listen. To the air, to the earth, to the spin that might be beginning again. Not with force, not with fire, but with grace. The sound of a planet remembering itself. The next morning brings wind again, this time stronger. It hums through the solar arrays like a song, rattling tension lines and setting the wind towers into a low, resonant chorus. People stop what they're doing. No one speaks at first, they just feel it. That subtle, invisible motion you once took for granted now feels like a miracle. The settlement breathes. You close your eyes and stretch out your hands, letting the wind slip through your fingers. It doesn't howl or whip, it glides, like fingers brushing piano keys. A caress from a world that had grown so still you feared it might never whisper again. Lisa runs new tests. She's frantic, elated, tearful all at once. Her magnetometer flutters, so does her voice. Look, she tells you, pointing at the readout. It's not a full turn, not even a degree. But the axis, it tipped, a fraction of a milliradian. The crust has shifted. We're tracking motion. Motion. Not just auroras, not just magnetic flutter. Motion of the Earth's body. The crust, the mantle, shifting, not much, but enough to measure. It's precessional drift, she explains. It's not a restart, but it's the beginning of instability again. That's good. That means the planet isn't locked anymore. It's stretching. A moment like that doesn't just belong to scientists. It belongs to everyone. So that night, the community gathers, not in ritual or lecture this time, in silence. A fire is lit, not for warmth, but for witnessing. Children sit on parents' laps, elders hold hands. Tasha leads a prayer, not a religious one, just words of thanks. Jonas reads the first story ever recorded in the settlement's archives, written on the first night the domes were finished. We plant our roots in still soil, not because we've given up on movement, but because we trust that it will one day return. We do not wait for the world to turn. We build the world that makes turning possible. Then, without cue or command, the community begins to move, slowly at first, in circles around the fire. A spiral dance. Nothing choreographed, nothing rehearsed. Children copy adults, adults copy the wind. It's the closest thing to music the world has had in years. You join in, feeling your heartbeat match the motion. It's strange how moving in circles makes you feel like the earth is moving again. Your breath comes easy, your legs don't ache, and when you look up, the stars don't seem so still anymore. Micah sketches the moment afterward, a swirl of stick figures encircling a glowing ember, with wind lines spiraling upward into a sky full of arrows and motion marks. He titles it The Night We Moved the Earth. The next few days bring a flurry of activity. Inspired by the wind, Lise pushes for new experiments. One involves a kinetic transfer device, a massive pendulum built from an old steel water tank suspended over a rock basin. It swings, driven by solar-powered winches during the day, and allowed to free fall through the night. We're not just measuring movement anymore, she tells you, we're creating it. Tasha's engineers assist, modifying the base with sensors and feedback coils that can pick up even the tiniest torsional response in the soil. On the second night of operation, the pendulum shifts 6 millimeters further than projected. Earth responded, Lisa whispers. The scientific community, what's left of it, is listening now. The Lesotho group arrives earlier than expected, dragging a convoy of half-functional rigs and heat-shielded foot sleds. They're weather-worn, emaciated but alive. They weep when they see the domes. Their leader, Amari, is carried in on a stretcher. She insists on walking through the gate. And she does. She plants both feet on the soil, takes a deep breath of filtered air, and smiles. "We thought we were heading toward a miracle," she says. "But you're not the miracle. We are." That phrase stays with you. You help her people settle, assigning them to new shelters. One of them, a former physics professor named Isaac, joins Lise in the research dome and begins work immediately. Together, they analyze the drift, the crust shift, the pendulum data. They don't call it recovery, they call it awakening. Recovery implies we're trying to return to a past state, Isaac says. But that's gone. This isn't rebirth, it's first breath. Jonas begins collecting these phrases. He's turned the archive into something living now. Half museum, half workshop. People write their stories, sketch diagrams, record dreams. It's art and science fused together. His can, he thumps rhythmically against the stone floor as he walks through it every morning, whispering to each new page, "You belong." One evening a small quake hits. Not destructive, just a shudder, a gasp through the rocks. The ground shakes, the power flickers, and people cheer. Because motion means the core is talking again, the mantle sighing, the crust remembering how to flex. It's not just our machines now, Nadia says that night. The planet is waking up with us. Word travels fast. Node 16 in the Alps confirms similar tremors. Minor vertical uplift, just 2 centimeters, but synchronized with yours. That can't be coincidence. You start to map these moments, you call them earth beats. Every time something moves, you log it. Every tremor, every crust creep, every pendulum swing that exceeds its baseline, and something remarkable begins to emerge, a pattern. Lise builds a model, circular, spiral, layered like the skin of an onion. At the center, Earth's core, at the edges, humanity, and between them, data points. Hundreds of them, a web of whisper-thin motion. We're not just watching Earth wake up, she says. We're the nervous system. Each community, each node, each person walking in rhythm, dancing, working, generating tiny magnetic pulses. You're more than survivors now. You're synapses. The next step is audacious. Isaac proposes a coordinated event, what he calls the pulse walk. Each known node, each confirmed survivor group, each outpost that still has enough people and strength will walk in synchronization, around their settlements, around their domes, for 36 hours, always clockwise, always together. You wonder if it's absurd. But everyone agrees, absurd is what got humanity here. Absurd is what made fire, what built cities, what lit rockets. Absurd is what brought you to this node in the cold heart of a stopped planet. The date is set, on, a week to prepare. 1 week to gather what remains of the world and step forward together. That night, you sit by the wind tower again, watching it turn in the gentle breeze. You close your eyes, and for the first time you think you hear it. The earth, not speaking, not screaming, just humming. Low, patient, alive. You wake before sunrise. Not that sunrise really happens anymore, not in the way it used to, but this morning feels closer to one. The sky has a new shade of lavender threaded through its dusty orange. The air is lighter, not cooler, but cleaner. The planet feels as though it's taken a breath after holding it in for years. It's the day of the pulse walk. The settlement is already alive with soft footsteps, whispered greetings, the gentle clink of cookware being stacked away early. Breakfast is intentionally sparse, just enough to energize, not enough to slow the body. Everyone knows what's ahead. 36 hours of synchronized walking, step by step, a living orbit made from human motion. At the center of it all stands the sundial, ringed by spiral paths of smooth earth tamped down by weeks of preparation. Rope markers line the edges of the spiral like ancient megalith rings. The layout is simple but sacred now, the math of it beautifully precise. 3 full spirals outward, 3 inward, like a heartbeat with a systolic and diastolic wave. At exactly 0600 UTC, a low chime rings out from the wind tower. You and the others gather silently. No speeches, no orders, just the shared weight of intention. Then the first step. You take it alongside Lise and Micah. Behind you, Tasha, Amari, and her crew. Around the curve, Jonas lifts his cane and places it gently forward. A soft, collective exhale passes over the crowd, then another step. One by one, the entire node begins to move in synchrony. It's a slow, meditative rhythm. No rush, no force. just continuity, forward motion clockwise with no gaps and no breaks. You walk, and as you do, your body begins to remember something ancient, the primal connection between movement and purpose, between pattern and peace. This is not exercise, it is not pageantry, it is an offering. At the research dome, Lisa's equipment hums, the magnetometers are running, the pendulum is swinging. Each quarter hour, the data is logged and reviewed. A subtle pattern emerges, a strengthening in local magnetic coherence. The signal isn't strong, but it's cleaner, less noise, more structure, a signature, not static. She compares the readings with Node 16's data, transmitted just minutes before your pulse walk began. It mirrors your pattern. The spiral paths you walk are matching theirs, not physically but in frequency, in phase. You are becoming a waveform. The Earth is beginning to listen. By midday, other nodes confirm their start. Node 8 in the Andes, Node 23 in central Siberia, Node 9, once thought lost, pings back from a submerged arcology dome near what used to be Singapore. They too are walking. For the first time since the Earth fell still, thousands of people across its surface are moving with intent, with rhythm, with hope. The second lap around the spiral feels different. Your legs are looser now. The energy isn't just your own anymore, it's communal, shared. Micah is grinning, his gaze flicking skyward every few steps like he expects the stars themselves to applaud. Beside you, Lise hums quietly, a steady tone that matches her breath. She's not even looking at the sensors anymore, she's feeling it. You pass the wind tower again. Tied to its base are thousands of hand-sized tokens. Cloth, paper, metal, bark, every one a message or a name or a dream. Some have drawn constellations, others have written poems. One simply reads, "Spin, please." Night falls slowly. The artificial dusk light dims by degrees, casting everything in soft amber. Battery-powered lanterns are placed along the spiral path. The settlement glows like a bioluminescent organism, a living seed, on the face of a sleeping planet. You keep walking. You're tired but not exhausted. The rhythm sustains you. Every step whispers, "We are here, we are moving, we are alive." In the command tent, Lisa's instruments flash a new alert. "Baseline deviation," she murmurs. Everyone gathers. Isaac double-checks the reading. His hands tremble. "It's not us," he says. "It's the core. The data is undeniable. Somewhere deep below your feet, pressure waves are resonating against the inner mantle. Weak, irregular, but rhythmic. A pulsing signal, as if the liquid metal at Earth's center is sloshing, not spinning, not yet, but stirring, testing its bounds. "Could be a false echo," someone suggests. "Or," Jonas replies, "the Earth just took a heartbeat of its own." Word spreads like fire through the node. People begin to cry as they walk, not from fear, from vindication, from awe, from the unbearable intimacy of feeling noticed by the planet you thought had forgotten you. You walk on. The third lap is quiet, bodies slow, voices fade, but no one stops. Even those who can't walk anymore, elders, injured, children, are pushed in chairs, carried on shoulders. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. And then it happens. Right before dawn, a gust of wind, stronger than anything since the Earth stopped, blows through the spiral. It knocks lanterns over, lifts tarps, tangles flags. But it doesn't knock you down. You stop in place, faces turn to the dark sky and watch as clouds begin to move. Actual clouds, drifting, carried not by thermal convection or residual momentum, but by wind, structured wind, patterned airflow, atmospheric motion. Lysay shouts from the research dome, "The jet stream! We've got real jet stream motion!" For hours it continues. Wind spirals across the sky in great ribbons. They form fronts, tails, whirls. Somewhere in the distance, someone smells rain. The Earth is stirring, not just in its core, not just in its crust, in its lungs. The pulse walk ends at 1800 UTC, exactly 36 hours after it began. You stop with everyone else, at the center of the spiral, a collective stillness, no applause, just breath. And then, light. A sunbeam breaks through the cloud cover. Not a full sunrise, just a spear of golden light that cuts across the edge of the dome and lands on the sundial's tip. Micah gasps. It moved. The shadow is in a new position, a real change, not from lensing or dust, but from rotation. Fractional, yes, but real. Lise runs out of the dome, data tablet in hand, tears streaming down her face. 1/100th of a degree, clockwise, we turned. People collapse to their knees, laugh, weep, hold each other. Jonas takes off his hat and whispers, "Welcome back, Earth." You don't speak, you just look up. And for the first time, the sky doesn't feel like a ceiling. It feels like a wheel, moving, turning, returning. You wake later than usual, wrapped in the soft silence of a new kind of morning. The kind that carries not dread, but depth. Your body aches, not painfully, but honestly. Every muscle remembers yesterday, remembers the walk, the wind, the pulse beneath your feet. Outside, the settlement feels different. Not louder, not busier, more aware. There's a stillness, but not of fear or suspension. It's a held breath just after the miracle, a pause before the world decides what happens next. And what happens next is motion. Lise doesn't rest. By the time you arrive at the research dome, she's already plotting new data. Crustal drift measurements, pendulum variants, minor tectonic reports from the Alps node. Isaac hunches beside her, crunching real-time correlation sequences from every node still able to send telemetry. 3 nodes reported measurable spin, he tells you, all clockwise, all within plus 0.01 of hours. The Earth is turning, not drifting. You stare at the screen. A blue digital globe, grainy and incomplete, blinks slowly, rotating, not in simulation, in real time. You don't chi. You exhale. This is what you've been walking for, what you've been building toward with every footstep, every breath. The rotation is still infinitesimal, far too slow to bring back nights and days, but it's there, not theoretical, not a ghost. A measurable wobble, a planetary heartbeat just one tick stronger than yesterday's. Later, you walk with Lise along the outer ring of the spiral path, still etched into the dirt. She pauses. Do you feel it? You do. It's subtle, less than a whisper, almost like vertigo. But you feel the planet under your feet, not the pressure of gravity, not inertia, something older, something awake. She says, it's not like before. The spin's different, off-axis, slower, but it's ours. You walk in silence for a while. Every breeze seems more intentional. Every creak of the dome has a rhythm now. The Earth doesn't feel dead anymore. It feels embryonic, like something being born. At midday, the wind towers pick up a new frequency. Not radio, vibration, a tonal hum that echoes up from below, barely audible, but consistent. Isaac triangulates its source, a mid-mantle flux disturbance likely triggered by core readjustment. Translation? The Earth is groaning, realigning. The term that spreads through the community like wildfire is reawakening, but Jonas suggests a better word, quickening. It's what we used to call the first movement felt in a pregnancy, he tells the settlement that evening. The child stirs. The body recognizes new life. That's what this is, not birth, not return, a new becoming. You watch his face as he speaks. His voice is steadier now, no longer clinging to the past but leaning into the future. He's thinner but stronger. Age has settled into him like sediment, quiet, solid, rooted. Earth doesn't want to go back, he says. It wants to go forward with us. That thought carries you through the next days. You're no longer just maintaining survival. You're reshaping meaning. The growing fields expand. Crops respond to new light cycling. Though Earth's natural day hasn't returned, the artificial circadian schedule, mimicking a 26-hour rotation, keeps bodies steady, moods balanced, metabolism strong. Children begin using phrases you haven't heard since the world stopped. Tomorrow, yesterday, next week. Time is creeping back in. Not imposed. Lived. Tasha's group initiates a sky survey project. Though satellite relay is scarce, a few low-orbit bodies have begun drifting in slightly altered paths, new trajectories made possible by Earth's marginal rotation. "We can map again," she tells you, barely able to contain her excitement. "Navigation might be possible soon, not just estimation, travel." You help lay down the first crude planetary coordinate grid since the stoppage. It's not global yet, but within 1,000 kilometers of the node, you now have directional orientation based on solar angle and crustal torque drift. It's a compass, a true one, made from motion. The settlement holds a gathering to name this shift. Not a holiday, something older, more primal, a marking. They call it first turning. There's no party, no feast, just candles, stories. Children writing in chalk the names of the nodes confirmed active 12, 16, 8, 23, 9, 42, more names added daily now. Each name written along the spiral, each one a firefly in the dark. During the night that follows, a low growl wakes you. At first you think it's thunder, but it's beneath you, the Earth's bones. A deep tectonic vibration trembles through the ground. The domes flex. The wind towers hum. Sensors trip and stabilize. Lise sprints barefoot to the dome. "This is it," she cries. "It's a crustal rebound." The data shows a micro-rift realignment, pressure redistributing across ancient fault lines that hadn't moved since the planet froze. You look up, half expecting the stars to blink, and then you see it. A cloud spiral, wide, slow. Real weather, not manufactured, not chemical. Air moving across latitude, driven by Earth's rotation. You stumble outside with the others. People point, cry, laugh. It's like watching a sleeping beast stretch, beautiful and terrifying. Amari touches your shoulder. Her voice is reverent. It's healing. You shake your head slowly. No, it's adapting. A message crackles in from Node 9. They've seen something similar. Cyclonic wind structure moving westward. It matches your timeline. Multiple nodes confirming the same atmospheric signature. That's planetary. You're no longer isolated domes on a dead rock. You're organs of a waking world. That night you sit under the wind tower again. It's become your place of reflection. The spiral is visible from here, and so is the sundial, now permanently marked with its new shadow point. Micah joins you, sitting cross-legged, cradling his sketch pad. He shows you his newest drawing. It's a hand, fingers outstretched, but instead of a palm, the center is a spiral. "Us," he says, touching Earth, and Earth spinning back. You smile. You remember all the old warnings, that we couldn't survive this, that humanity would break apart without light, without time, that a still planet was a dead planet. They were wrong. Stillness isn't death, it's a waiting place. And now Earth is done waiting. You wake before the first meal bell, woken not by alarm, but instinct. There's something in the air today, an edge, a hush, like standing on the verge of a sentence just before the final word arrives. Outside, the spiral path glistens faintly. Overnight, condensation froze in tiny patterned layers across its surface, crystals arranged like fingerprints. No two spirals are the same, and these seem organized. Delicate ridges running parallel to the walking path. Some see signs in them. Micah calls them Earth script. The domes are already stirring, no formal call to action, just quiet purpose. The kind of unspoken agreement that happens when people know the moment matters. In the research dome, Lisa and Isaac greet you with wide eyes and trembling voices. "It's happening again," she says. The axis shifted a full 6 arc seconds. That may not sound like much, it's not even a blink to the human eye, but to the planet, that's a lurch, a ripple of motion that pushes the crust just a little, and hints that beneath the mantle, the Earth's engine is turning, not idle, not flickering, turning. Isaac overlays the shift data with the core seismic harmonics, and a pattern emerges, a pulse, a rhythm, not stable, not evenly spaced, but regular enough to suggest intent. Jonas joins you, leaning on his cane, and studies the waveform for a long moment. "That's breath," he says. "The planet is breathing again." Outside, wind patterns confirm the shift. The jet stream is fragmenting, not collapsing, but splitting into dynamic ribbons. Old weather maps are beginning to mean something again. Tasha projects a low-pressure system beginning to form off what was once the Atlantic shelf. Not chaotic, spiraled, real weather. Rain is coming, and for the first time in years, it's natural. The community gathers under the main dome. Amari leads the briefing. She's holding a printed satellite image, grainy and low-res, but unmistakable. Clouds curving like a paintbrush stroke over the North Atlantic. The spin, clockwise in the northern hemisphere. Proof. Earth is spinning. The room doesn't cheer this time. Not wildly, not the way you would expect. The sound that fills the air is quieter, heavier. It's reverence. Some people cry, others kneel. Some just exhale and look up, as though the sky might lean down and whisper thanks in return. You feel the truth of it in your chest. This is no longer a story of survival. This is a story of response. Earth didn't need saving, it needed presence. Later, Lisa finds you near the spiral. You're brushing frost from the marker stones when she crouches beside you. "Do you know what this means?" she asks. You nod. "It means we're not passengers anymore." She smiles faintly. "We never were." She pulls a small stone from her pocket, polished, dark and magnetic. She holds it near the path, and you both watch as it tilts, just slightly but unmistakably, toward the east. The compass is working, not reliably, not smoothly, but it's alive. Navigation is back. That night, the first real storm since the stoppage sweeps across the dome. It's soft at first, a low whisper of wind, a murmur in the sky. Then thunder, not a roar, but a long, slow exhale. Rain follows, falling in soft, rhythmic taps across the dome's shell. You all gather beneath the outer awnings, arms outstretched, faces raised. Some of the children laugh and run, others just stand still, letting the drops strike their skin. You hadn't realized how much you missed the sound of rain. The scent of it is overwhelming. Wet dust, ozone, soil finally stirred from its long slumber. Jonas tells the story of the first rainfall ever documented in human writing. A Sumerian tablet, over 4,000 years old, carved with the line, "The sky weeps and the seeds rejoice." It feels right. So you all remain there, soaking wet and grinning until the clouds pass. The rain lasts only 23 minutes, just enough to leave puddles, just enough to stir hope into every crack in the concrete. You wake early the next morning and find Tasha atop the watchtower, scanning the horizon. "There," she says, pointing east. You raise your binoculars. At first, all you see is haze. Then, movement, a column. It's not a cloud. It's a vehicle. More than one. The convoy is arriving. The survivors from Node 42, believed lost when their underground bunker collapsed during the third solar burst, have been traveling on foot and salvage carts for almost a month. Their leader, a young engineer named Selim, limps forward with a cracked helmet and a fire in his eyes. They step into the node one by one, no music, no ceremony, just a long line of people who never stopped walking. When Selim finally reaches you, he lifts his arm and says just 3 words. "You're still spinning." You nod. So are you. Later, in the warmth of the communal fire, he tells their story, how they tunneled out, how they navigated by memory, how they found an old compass that started working 2 weeks ago. "We knew it wasn't a fluke," he says. "The planet's alive. We could feel it." In the coming days, more messages arrive, from a micronode in Tasmania, from a signal flare received off the coast of what was once Madagascar, from a raft group near the Bering Strait that claims to have seen tides again. Tides. You hadn't even considered that. Tasha crunches the numbers and sure enough, minor fluctuations along the crust-water boundaries. Not strong, not dangerous, but predictable. You remember the old stories of the moon's influence, its gentle tug on the ocean's body, guiding the dance of tides and time. With Earth's rotation stirring again, the moon's pull means something once more. "I wonder if it missed us," Micah says quietly one night, sketching its ghostly crescent in the sky. It's an absurd thought, but not entirely, because if Earth can respond to humans, why not to its oldest companion? You walk the spiral path again that evening, alone this time. No celebration, no ceremony, just footsteps on frozen soil slowly waking up. You think about everything the planet has endured. Impact, fire, ice, and now, stillness. But still it turns, even in pause, even in pain. You think of all those who didn't live to see this moment, and you walk for them, for the ones who believed, for the ones who doubted, for the ones who kept going because going was all there was. By the time you complete the spiral, the wind has shifted again. You tilt your hair. D, close your eyes and smile. You don't need to measure it anymore. You feel the turn. You wake in the dim hush before twilight, when the wind has stilled and the dome's air circulators hum like monks at prayer. The earth has turned again, only a fraction, but your body knows before the data confirms it. There's a subtle shift in pressure in your ears, a lightness in your joints, the way you rise with less resistance. The spiral path outside is still damp with dew from the second rain in 3 days. It didn't come with thunder this time, just a soft tapping on the dome, like fingers on glass, and it lasted longer, almost 2 hours. In the quiet, you hear a rhythm that used to be normal and now feels sacred, dripping. Real water falling from real clouds, soaking into real earth. Tasha is already up. She's inspecting the old water table just beyond the east fence. For months, it's been inert, dry as bone beneath layers of dead sediment. But today? It moved, she says, tapping the readout. Hydraulic activity. The aquifer's shifting again. We've got percolation. You look down at her screen. It's unmistakable. Ground moisture climbing, gravity working, seepage patterns that only form when the crust flexes just enough to let the water breathe. Not just local, planetary. You smile. It's becoming a world again. She laughs. No, it is a world. It just needed to hear us. Later that day, a delivery drone arrives, an ancient, battered thing limping in from the north. Its flight is erratic, but it lands safely. Inside, wrapped in thermal foil and redundancy codes, is a gift from Node 16. Seeds, wheat, kale, beets, onion, but also rarities, fragments of life that seemed lost, tomato, lavender, cacao, and in the center of the case, a sealed pod marked only with a sketch of a tree. Apple. You stand with the others in silence as Amari opens the package. Lise lifts the apple seed barely larger than a grain of rice with trembling fingers. She turns it in the light, and for a moment it sparkles. There's a kind of gasp, not from anyone in particular, but from the community as a whole, a collective intake of breath. A moment when every heartbeat seems to sync to the same silent message. This is for planting. The soil is tested. It's viable now, at least the upper layers. The crushed glass and ancient rot have mixed long enough with microbe-reseeded matter to begin resembling something like earth again. Not the lush loam of the pre-stop world, but ground that might take root. And so, under the center of the spiral, you gather. Not with tools or machines, with hands. Bare palms pressing through the frost-burnished soil, loosening it, blessing it. A circle forms. Micah draws concentric rings around the spot with the tip of his stylus. Echoes, he says softly. Roots like time. Jonas, moving slower now, joins you. He doesn't kneel. He simply lays one hand against the ground beside the seedling and whispers something no one catches. It's not important what the words were. It's important that they were spoken. Planting doesn't take long. What takes time is the silence afterward, the moment of collective stillness where no one dares to move, as if the seed must feel your presence and not your noise. Above you, the clouds part, not dramatically, just enough to let a shaft of light strike the fresh-turned soil. Sunlight, not artificial, not filtered, real. The seed is covered, watered, and named. You call it turning tree. Even the children speak in hushed tones around it. They bring it pebbles, shells, scraps of color from old-world things. One leaves a crayon drawing folded at its base, a sun, a spiral, and a tree with arms, not roots, arms. That night, Lisa presents new data. Earth's rotation has passed the 0.25 mark, she announces. That's a quarter of its old angular velocity. Everyone stops. even the wind steers. Ulls as if the planet itself is listening. It means one full rotation, one real day-night cycle, is possible within a few weeks if the momentum sustains. The magnetic field has grown stronger, more structured. Auroras now form in predictable zones again. Satellites have begun to stabilize. You step outside the dome just before midnight, and there, on the southern horizon, you see it. A faint line of brightness, not a solar glare. Dawn. You've seen light. You've seen glow. But this is change. The Earth, once still and sullen, is turning enough for the horizon to shift, and with it comes memory. Not yours, its. Because somewhere in the deeper chambers of its molten heart, Earth remembers what it means to spin. Tasha stands beside you, breath fogging in the chill. "We'll need clocks again," she says. The thought feels bizarre, irreverent, and yet true. It starts with one. Jonas carves a sundial into the spiral's central stone, not for precision, but reverence. Its shadow dances ever so slightly more each day. The children track its movement with paint, dotting each millimetre of change in glowing pigment. They call them hope marks. Micah paints stars again, not theoretical ones, not memory stars. He paints the sky as it is, slightly skewed, slightly shifted, but alive. Above the dome, the moon tilts fractionally, no longer passive. Its orbit is adjusting in response to Earth's movement. Lisa watches the lunar telemetry with awe. "They're dancing again," she whispers. "Just barely, but they remember the steps." In the coming days, the turning tree sprouts. A single green blade, arched and fragile, curls toward the dome's filtered light. You gather to see it. No one speaks. Micah draws it. Tasha touches the soil. Amari kneels and breathes it in like incense. Jonas whispers, "We are not the first to witness rebirth, but perhaps we are the first to build one." From across the world, signals arrive. Node 9 has established, shed a permanent greenhouse. Node 23 has begun mapping constellations again. Node 12's tidal readouts now include fish migration estimates. Salim's convoy to Node 43 reports freshwater ice melt patterns consistent with seasonal change. The Earth's seasons are stirring, slightly, subtly, but definitely. The days ahead are uncertain. You know this. There are still radiation belts to navigate, food chains to re-establish, knowledge gaps to fill. But every node, every settlement, every survivor is no longer just clinging to rock. They are turning with it, with Earth, with purpose, with rhythm. You sleep that night under the dome with the sound of water dripping into catch barrels, with wind fluttering cloth, with a pulse beneath your spine you swear you can now feel. Tomorrow will come, not in metaphor, not in metaphorical tomorrow, a true tomorrow. A world remade not by machines or saviors or miracles, but by motion, your motion. You rise before the others. The dome is still cloaked in a pale, pearlescent pre-dawn that barely touches the spiral stone path outside. You take each step with care, the gravel crunching gently beneath your feet. Overhead, the sky has taken on a new hue. Less grey, more copper and gold. A colour that means something now, not just scattered photons, a signal. You step into the garden dome, and there it is, the turning tree. It's taller today, noticeably. Its thin green stem has split into two new shoots, curling slightly outward, tiny leaves unfurling like tentative fingers testing the air. It is not dramatic, it does not glow or sing, but it stands. And that now is everything. You kneel beside it, touch the soil, still warm, still alive, and beneath your palm a tremor, not a quake, a shiver. The planet below is shifting again. The crust, the mantle, the oceans, they are speaking in low, seismic syllables. Lise later too tells you that her instruments recorded a coordinated wave from at least 5 nodes, a true, synchronized oscillation. That's not random, she says. That's response. Tasha has begun calculating velocity charts for a rotational year. If Earth sustains even a tenth of its former spin, it could produce a full seasonal cycle within 2 Earth-standard years. Day, night, solstice, equinox, she says, listing the names like sacred relics. We'll need to remember how to celebrate. That afternoon, a message comes through from Node 16. They've spotted it too. Dawn. But not just a faint brightening. Sunrise, a sliver of sun breaching the curved edge of their horizon, gold and sharp and moving. They've recorded it, transmitted the footage. You all crowd into the viewing hall, breath caught in throats. The screen flickers, stabilizes, and there it is, a real sunrise. Not a simulation, not lens flare, not residual light scatter. A star emerging from behind a turning planet. People cry, not loudly, just tears, silent and shimmering and steady. You don't remember who begins it, but someone whispers, "It's morning." The words feel heavy and holy. You whisper them back, and then again, louder. "It's morning." You all begin repeating it. A mantra, a miracle. Micah sketches the scene, wide-eyed. His charcoal streaks a sun arc across a horizon that now moves. His fingers are black with dust, and his heart might as well be shining from his chest. Later, you step outside with Jonas. He leans heavily on you now. His steps are slow, but steady. You take him to the turning tree. He doesn't say anything at first. Then, softly, "Do you know what this means?" You nod. "That we have a future." He smiles. "More than that. We are the future." The spiral path glows in faint blue chalk lines from the children's hope marks. They've faded slightly in the wind, but not enough to forget. Their hands still remember where each was placed, and soon they'll need to start a second ring. More marks, more motion. The next day, the stars shift, just a little. Enough that the constellations begin to stretch, their geometry slightly elongated as Earth's rotation reasserts its curve on your gaze. Lise projects it. In another 200 days, if the spin holds, the skies will align with pre-stop star maps. Stargazing becomes sacred, no longer wishful, no longer nostalgic, but navigation. That night, beneath a sky breathing slow spirals of cloud and light, you gather the community once more. The spiral path is lit again, lanterns, candles, chemical lights, a ribbon of flame and colour winding through the dark. Not a walk this time, not a ritual, a celebration. The first since the day the planet faltered. You begin to walk, but not to repair anything. You walk to remember, to honour, to give thanks, for the breath of the wind, the pulse beneath your feet, the curl of a single green leaf, the arc of the sun, the smile of a child who points and says, "I can feel it moving, you can too," and you walk together into the night, letting your body sway gently with the rhythm of the turning world, letting the earth cradle your steps as it once did. You look up, stars moving ever so slowly, the spiral below echoing the spiral above, and somewhere far below at the molten heart of it all, Earth stirs, Earth sings, Earth spins. You are no longer clinging to a dead world. You are part of a living one. You are the hands on its clock, the roots of its trees, the rhythm of its walk. The earth is turning again, and you are still here, still walking, still waking, still becoming. Now, dear traveller, slow your breath. You've walked long and far, through silence, through wind, through the slow reawakening of a planet once believed lost. But here you are, still standing, still feeling the quiet murmur of the earth beneath your bones. Let your breath match that rhythm now. Inhale, slowly, like the first curl of a leaf toward light. Exhale, gently, like the sigh of clouds across a morning sky. The storm has passed. The world has shifted. And though it turns slowly, it does turn, each fraction of a degree bringing warmth, gravity, time back into the embrace of life. Perhaps you can feel it even now, in your toes, in your chest, a quiet resonance that says, you belong here. You are part of this turning. You are more than a witness. You are a thread in the spiral, a whisper in the great breath of earth. So rest now. Lay your head upon the pillow of this story. Close your eyes beneath the dome of stars above. Let the memory of rain lull you. Let the voice of the wind rock you. And let the thought settle deep in your dreams. The world sleeps and wakes and turns again. You are safe. You are seen. And tomorrow is already on its way. Sleep well, sleepless scientist. The earth will be here when you wake.